It's the September 4th morning session of the Portland City Council. Good morning, Carla. Could you please call the roll?
Yes, good morning. Hardesty?
Here.
Udaley?
Here.
Fritz?
Here.
Fish?
Here.
Wheeler?
Here. Now we'll hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings so everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. If it does not, you may be ruled out of order. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on, and when your time is done, a red light goes on. If you are in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express that you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Please remain seated in council chambers unless entering or exiting. If you are filming the proceedings, please do not use bright lights or disrupt the meeting. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations, will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
Very good. Thank you. First up, communications, Carla.
Item 825, request of Diana Richardson to address council regarding opposition to the expansion of the Zenith Terminal and subsequent increased shipping of fracked gas through our city.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. My name is Melanie Plout, Dr. Melanie Plout, and Diane Richardson asked me to testify instead of her today because she is ill. I did send a communication through the clerk yesterday.
We got that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you
No
very
problem.
much.
Thank you.
I also have another request. There are 3 of us here today to testify about Zenith, 3 physicians, and I'd like to allow Dr. Kelly O'Hanley to testify first because she has a conflict that she has to get to quickly. Is that okay?
That's not a problem without objection. Carla, could you read the second name, please? I'm sorry, third, 827.
827, request of Kelly O'Hanley to address council regarding expansion of the Zenith Oil Terminal.
And is Ann Turner with you as well?
Yes, she
Why
is.
don't you call Ann Turner 826, please?
Request of Ann Turner to address council regarding Portland fossil fuels.
That way you can all come up.
And Mayor.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. I'm assuming that the people in red are people you know. They came to show their support today.
Generally, we know most of them.
So would we want to just get you to stand up so we'll know that you're supporting the testimony that's happening? It's always good for us to have a visual.
Good morning.
I thought the red shirts were important, so thanks.
So who wanted to, let's go ahead and clear the clock, and let's start with whoever wants to go first.
Fine, good morning. My name is Dr. Kelly O'Hanley. I'm affiliated with the Physicians for Social Responsibility here in Oregon and with Center for Sustainable Economy. In a couple of weeks, you'll be receiving several thousand signatures from the Stop Zenith Collaborative, urging you to take action to stop it. I was one of the people that helped collect signatures. And regardless of how many thousands you receive, I can tell you it's a fraction of what really reflects the city's people's attitudes. It was pretty much the easiest job I've ever had. My kind of pitch was that we were here to let people know about the would-be expansion of a oil terminal right in northwest Portland. It'd be frack gas coming all the way from Canada down the gorge to Portland for export to Asia, and people are like reaching for the pen, like, no, we don't want this. It was pretty amazing, and it was wonderful to be able to educate people about those that didn't know. And we invited them to sign a petition, like, urging city council to take action, lawyer up, do what it takes, make it stop. So you'll see those signatures. And among the things that we feel that you could do would be help fund a risk assessment of the critical energy infrastructure. This assessment would lay the groundwork for a policy to charge polluters for the full costs of the risks they're placing on the city, and Zenith being one of them. The Multnomah County has already kicked in some money. They're going to work with Portland State, and if the city can match funds, if you will, that would be a big step for confronting
Can I ask you a question on
Zenith.
that? It seems like a very sensible approach to a public health problem like this. What the lawyers often tell us is that the areas with railroads are fraught because of federal preemption, state preemption, other kinds of things. Has some legal analysis been done as to whether localities have that authority?
Oh, I'm glad you didn't, you asked me a question I can't answer.
Well, let me put it this way. It sounds to me like that's something we'll do collectively. Take a look at that, because the railroads are very challenging to deal
Right,
with, as
I
you know,
agreed.
because of the
Agreed.
preemptions that they've.
But there are also a lot of point areas for risk, but your lawyers could find that out, and I mean, I would urge them to do it, because.
I think the concept
yeah.
is very sound.
I think it is too, and other industries have to fork out money for risk bonding. If you're a contractor in building, you have to put up money in case there's problems, and the fact that this industry has gotten scot-free on that is crazy to me. And why shouldn't they be a pool of money sitting there for the eventuality of a mishap?
Well, in fact, in the tort law, and I'm a recovering lawyer, we say that for dangerous activities in general, we apply a strict liability standard.
Yes.
We say, whatever harm you cause, you are strictly liable without having to establish fault, because you're inherently a dangerous activity.
Well, and I mean, unfortunately, there's also been history of, Lockmog and Teak and other disasters where, they have so many firewalls, legal firewalls, that they just walk off, okay, we've declared bankruptcy. So we want the money to be set aside up front so that they can't do the walk away and leave us holding the bag, which is what's happened over and over again in other places.
Thank
Could I suggest the following, because this is a really important issue, and obviously we're all chomping at the bit to join the conversation. Why don't we let this panel complete their testimony, and then let's jump in after the fact, because my suspicion is they're going to raise a number of issues, ask some questions, and offer some solutions. So why don't we hear the panel out, and then let's jump in.
Great. So
Great,
I'll
thank
go
you.
on to
That did not take any of your time, by the way.
my precious time. Don't take it
Thank you.
away. So I'm just going to make one other suggestion
Please.
about a possible step. The Zenith is applying for a permit for a new pipe under Front Street, and they want to import a chemical called methylene diphenyl isocyanate. I can barely say it. And I mean, I don't want to get too wonky, but it's an unholy mess. It's dangerous. It's been known to cause asthma, lung damage, and in severe cases, fatal reactions. They want to import it by boat, and what it would do with a spill is worrisome. So we're urging you to look at that carefully, potentially deny that permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dr. Ann Turner, and thank you, Mayor Wheeler and the Portland City Council, for the opportunity to speak today about my opposition to Zenith Energy. Zenith Energy's operations are not only a threat to Portland's health and safety, but are exacerbating global warming and contributing to our climate emergency. So I will focus my comments on this issue. I retired from Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Center, a community health center which cares for vulnerable populations, a few years ago. Vulnerable populations bear the brunt of the effects of global warming. Now I'm a volunteer with Oregon's PSR's Healthy Climate Action Team. On one day last month, 12.5 billion tons of ice melted in Greenland. This is the hottest summer on record in the world ever. The Amazon is burning. We can no longer deny that our planet is in the midst of a climate emergency. Zenith is transporting tar sands oil, the worst type of oil for the climate, producing 3 times the greenhouse gas emissions of conventionally produced oil. Tar sands oil comes from the Canadian boreal forest, and extracting it destroys its carbon sequestering forest and wetlands. A gallon of gasoline from tar sands oil puts 15% more CO2 into the air than a gallon made from conventional oil. Tar sands extraction uses more energy and more water to get the oil out of the ground. Tar sands is extreme oil in every way. Portland City Council passed an ordinance banning new fossil fuel infrastructure in 2016, and Portland's created the Portland Clean Energy Fund. The council must continue its leadership role in promoting a healthy climate by taking action to stop Zenith's operations. On another topic, we're excited to learn that the mayor's office, your office, is creating a climate emergency resolution, but we are concerned that its approval has a very short timeline. A resolution of this significance must be given adequate time for stakeholder engagement and feedback, especially from frontline communities. On September 20th, the youth will lead an international climate strike. Youth will bear the burden of climate disasters. We must act now. There is no time left. Our planet is on life support. Zenith must be stopped. We must keep tar sands and other fossil fuels in the ground and move to 100% renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners, almost exactly 6 months ago, I came to Council to ask you to take action on the Zenith Terminal. I talked about a prior resolution that Council had passed in 2015, which reads, "It is binding city policy to oppose all projects that would increase the amount of crude oil being transported through the city of Portland." And I was heartened 6 months ago to hear Mayor Wheeler promise to take action. Since then, there have been public forums, meetings, discussions, and proposals. And yet, dangerous oil trains still move through our neighborhoods. And the world's most destructive fossil fuel is still being exported through our city. It is time to move past promises, past declarations, to action itself. In these 6 months, Zenith has been, shall we say, less than forthcoming on several fronts. About spill testing with the DEQ, about what kinds of substances it plans to handle with some of your offices, and about a proposed pipe under Front Avenue. Recently, according to a warning letter sent by DEQ, it turns out several of the company's storage tanks haven't been inspected in more than 5 years, putting them out of compliance with state law. And the person they appointed to be in charge of an emergency spill response lives 4 hours away, which is not only sloppy and unacceptable, but shows a disdain for our cities and our rivers. I say be highly skeptical if this company makes any promises that it plans to handle greener fuels. This is a tar sands company. We need City Council and your staff to dig harder than you have been and to look at all options to stop the tar sands and the oil trains. This is your job. Our job is to keep reminding you to do your job. In a few weeks, the people of Portland will be at Zenith for a 60-hour vigil from the early morning of September 4th continuously until the evening of the 26th. We would like to invite the mayor and all the commissioners to drop by and join us in this watchful and legal surveillance during that time. Around the world, forests burn, islands are submerged, and drought-induced refugees suffer wherever they try to find home. Portland residents want to be proud of the action this council takes related to the crisis that is climate change. It's pretty simple. We need to move as quickly as humanly possible away from fossil fuel extraction. The hard part is that in order to do this, we all need to be just a little bit braver. So we say, have courage, take risks, stop the tar sands. The future will judge our leaders harshly for a tepid response at this crucial moment. I've also been asked to confirm that council is not going to take any action on extending a permit for Zenith today. Can you confirm that with me?
I can confirm that today.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for your time.
Great. And I just wanted to quickly, well, first of all, I want to thank you, and I want to thank all of your colleagues for being here as well. And while you don't see everything that is going on, I want to assure you that this is a top priority, not just for me, not just for this council, but the bureaus as well. They're working very, very hard to get accurate data and accurate information so that they can inform the decisions that are being made. One of you had mentioned that you didn't feel that the data was accurate. That is a concern. And it's a legitimate concern that not only the First Responder Bureau has, but also the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability and the Bureau of Development Services, as well as some of our other agency partners. Number two, we are working with and collaborating with our agency partners because while we don't regulate all of it, there are other parts that are regulated by other agency partners like DEQ. DEQ, as you know, just recently indicated they sent a warning letter to Zenith saying that they saw some red flag issues and violations regarding their oil spill prevention practices. Zenith has 30 days as of the time that letter was actually sent to demonstrate that they in fact have those practices in place. And if not, there is remediation that we can then employ collectively with the state. The permit that has been talked about substantially in recent weeks has not yet been, it's my understanding, has not yet been, unless it happened like in the last 24 hours, it has not yet been received by the Office of Community Technology. Obviously,
You're talking about the pipe under the road, yes?
That's obvious. That pipeline permit is obviously a critical juncture. It's a critical question, and it's one that I will personally take a great interest in. But we have not yet received that permit, so there's no action we can specifically take on that permit, either in favor or in opposition to that. Last but not least, with regard to the climate emergency declaration, I hear what you're saying with regard to wishing that there could be more input from stakeholders. Could I ask you a follow-up question? Because there is a sense of urgency that I have to that. We are certainly not the first city to declare a climate emergency. We have taken other actions in lieu of that, and we've updated our climate action plan in lieu of that, but we believe that it is important that we take that stand collectively with other cities. I will be going to C40 at the end of September. In addition, as you mentioned, the climate strike that young people are engaged in, they want to see action out of this council and a statement of clear values out of this council. What is it that you feel that the stakeholders need in addition to what they already have to inform this process? How could we make that happen with relative speed?
Well, I think that I'm not really sure that I'm the person that can answer this question, first of all, but I do think that really it requires quite a bit of time to really analyze and look at something of this magnitude. And, whether or not you might be able to take, a preliminary or a draft climate resolution with you might be an option, but
Okay.
giving, normally when you're looking at approving, when states are looking at approving fossil fuel projects, there's minimally a 60-day hearing period that...
And we have all that as well, and it can come in the form of a resolution, then it goes out to the bureaus, and the bureaus actually develop policy that comes back to city council at a later date.
Can we circle back to you quickly?
Yeah,
I mean,
and-
within the day and make some concrete suggestions?
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
I'm deliberately making some noise, so if there's some stakeholders out there who feel that their input would be valued and valuable to this process, I certainly welcome it. I'm open to it. I'd like to see it, and so I
That'd
would
be great.
encourage people to
That'd
get
be
in touch
great.
with
We'll-
me.
I think my
Excellent, thank you.
concern is twofold. One, we want to be sure that frontline communities are involved in any kind of resolution, and I don't know what outreach you've done to those groups already. Not being one of those communities, I can't really speak for them.
That's fair.
The other piece is that, a climate emergency, declaring a climate emergency only means something if it has some teeth in it. And so to just have this be some sort of window dressing that we care is probably not going to be adequate.
So let me touch on that point too, and then I'll cede to my colleagues because I've gone on a little longer than I wanted to, but this is a really important and interesting issue. The 2016 ordinance that came before the City Council, which I supported at the time, not as a member of the City Council, but I supported it as a statewide elected official, that was remanded back to us, and that is being brought to the City Council with what we believe are the significant legal issues addressed. That's full of teeth.
You're
It's all
talking about the
teeth.
zoning amendment now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all
yeah.
teeth. In addition, some of the actions that we're looking at here in terms of fairly evaluating the request for any permits that might come forth, addressing any violations on the site, those also are real regulatory teeth that we can deploy when necessary. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for being here this morning and your passion around making sure that we don't have trains going through our community that blow up and destroy our community. I believe the last legislative session, there was a bill that could have been helpful to require the bonding take place. I think the bond amount was way too low because if one of those trains blow, it's going to cost billions of dollars, not just the measly amount that the legislature started with. But having said that, I think that it has to be a full court press on all fronts. DEQ has been irresponsible in their responsibility to make sure that Zenith does the testing that they're required to do every year. So I don't have as much faith that now that they're paying attention that they're going to actually do something without the public's pressure, right? It's going to take public pressure to make sure DEQ actually does what it's supposed to do. It's going to take pressure in the legislators. So there's a lot of legislators running for re-election now. And so getting a commitment from them early that they, in fact, are committed to making sure that we either change the law or strengthen the law to make sure that our communities are protected. And for me personally, as the person who is responsible for the Fire Bureau, I really want Zenith to have its own fire crew.
Right.
Because heaven forbid we have to send residential firefighters into a Zenith fire. It is a radically different fire than what our folks are trained for. And I think, quite frankly, the cost of them actually having to have an on-site fire team with the appropriate equipment hopefully will be enough to convince them maybe there are easier places to do business.
Fritz?
Who should people contact on your staff if they want to be involved in the climate resolution discussion?
I would encourage them to contact Sam Diaz,
And how do you spell that?
D-I-A-Z.
At portlandoregon.gov.
First name, Sam, S-A-M, sam.diaz@portlandoregon.gov.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks for coming in, appreciate it. Next individual, please, Carla, for communications.
Item 828, request of Robert Taylor to address council regarding Oregon Health Authority's ability to approve commercial medical marijuana grow operations in established neighborhoods without council approval.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. Good morning. I'm Robert Taylor of East County. I'm here to address the statute which I hold in my hand here. This statute has had a couple of revisions to it in areas. There was a revision, I believe, in the last legislature. Hopefully, with the new legislature coming up, with my testimony here and your help, we'll get another revision of it. I'm going to tell you, with my effort right now, we, with BDS and the Fire Bureau, they shut down a commercial warehouse cannabis grow operation, medical, adjacent to the Four Corners School at Southeast 146 and Southeast Stark, a special needs school in the Reynolds School District. That has been shut down as of last month. The school district helped with that effort. The biggest effort was our BDS and Fire Bureau. Having said that, that's closed down. Within 50 feet of that school, which is clearly a violation of the cannabis statute, with the compliance and noncompliance issues in that statute. It was shut down because of noncompliance, and it can be, the tenant and owner can, under the statute, be prosecuted, investigated by the Oregon State Police and prosecuted by the Attorney General under the statute. The second incident in East County near Northeast 157th in Gleason, we've got a commercial grow operation there right now going on adjacent within 38 feet of a Section 8 house with a single mother and 6 juvenile children in there. I've got a problem with that. That's my neighborhood. The statute does not address these situations as of the neighborhood one there. It does address the school situation. The livability of our established neighborhoods in my beloved Portland is not considered by this statute. It does not address the livability in this statute. The statute does not consider the health and welfare of our most important people, pregnant women, unborn children, and our small children and our four-legged little people that stays with us until the day they die or we die. It does not address these issues. The livability of my beloved Portland is the most important thing to me. The commercial grow operations of medical marijuana needs to be, under the Oregon Health Authority, needs to be moved to a commercial zone away from human beings, women, unborn children, and our children that their brains are still developing. Again, this is very important. This needs to be so. The next legislature needs to address this, and I'm asking and I'm pleading with your help as an elected body, and I voted. I respect all of you, your leadership, and with your help, I'm hoping that this next legislature will have some new members in it, will convene, and maybe with the help of our...
You've made your point very, very well.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Are you in communication with your state representative and your state senator?
I'm attempting at this time to be so.
Because that's going to be a great place to start,
Yes,
because
yes.
as you may know, they can put in any legislation that you would like to see
Yes.
on your behalf.
Yes, Representative Diego Hernandez was absent from the Reynolds School Board meeting, which he is a member of, 2 weeks ago. I went there to address this issue with the Executive Council and Dr. Diaz, who is the superintendent of the Reynolds School District, who helped in the closure of this cannabis Oregon Health Authority sanctioned warehouse.
Mr.
Well,
Taylor?
sir, I was just going to say, you
Yeah.
know, this is the communication slide,
Yes,
so
yes.
you had a whole 3 minutes to
Yes,
make your case,
yes.
and I think you did an excellent job in making your case.
Thank you, Commissioner.
But the reality is that this is state law.
Yes,
Right? And the
yes.
only way this changes is if the state finds a compelling reason to change the law.
Yes, you're right, Commissioner. Yes.
So I would really encourage you to contact your state representative and your state senator, sit down and talk to them about your concerns, and see if that is a good place for you to start to have that conversation.
Yes,
And
I am.
Mr. Taylor, you also have a second bite at the apple, which is when we do our legislative agenda for the city council, Commissioner Fritz and the mayor traditionally host a meeting in the community where people can come and advocate for something to be put on our agenda. So in addition to what Commissioner Hardesty has advised you, which is go directly to your state rep and state senator, you'll have a second bite at the apple to see if it is something that the city wants to entertain as part of its legislative agenda when we start taking public feedback on that. So thank you very much for coming in, and we'll follow up.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you,
We
council.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning to you.
Next individual, please, Carla.
Item 829, request of Jason Renaud to address council regarding mobile crisis services.
Very good. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. I'm Jason Renaud with the Mental Health Association. Good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to talk about medical mobile crisis services. You'll soon be looking at a proposal to create a new medical mobile crisis service as an alternative to police, to make contact with people who are estranged from health care, people who cannot turn to the protection of law or to a credit card insurance policy to protect them. This is not easy work. We've tried to create services like this before, with somewhat success and some failures along the way. There's a long history of Oregon trying to help people who are in crisis with limited budgets and without clinical resources. Hasn't gone well. What do we do for people with mental illness who refuse medical treatment and behave in a way that is distressing? Well, we try to help. We do. But who should give the help, and when, and how, and toward what end? These are practical, clinical, and even ethical questions which have baffled your predecessors. And baffled, they followed personalities towards creating these failures and not followed principles. Our idealization of civil liberties is quite confounded by mental illness. There's no quarter allowed for people who just can't think straight. They and their symptoms confuse the law. And without a sufficient safety net of social services, medical services, specialized housing, supportive employment, friends, families, neighbors, people with mental illness sometimes need to call for help. And because of decisions carefully made by elected officials, there's often no one to send but police. So there is a better way. Thank you for visiting Eugene. Thank you for visiting Eugene. First, you must remove police from the process whenever possible. We found excruciating experience that there is no amount of training or policy which reliably reduces routine harm police do to people with mental illness. It's not their fault, it's how you've made them. Second, you must find and fund a single, robust, independent medical mobile service, a humanistic gateway to psychiatry and addiction treatment. And we have an extraordinary and well-tested model at the Whitebird Clinic in Eugene, which you can learn from. If you follow their lead and build a service scaled to match theirs, which would be about 6 units running 30 or 40 hours a day, you'll get the same extraordinary results. So we can talk at length outside this room about other medical mobile services in other cities, how they're grappling with the same question, about integration with public safety, about environmental scan of services, about how to sustain team members. But CAHOOT's program in Eugene is available to provide both that experience and technical assistance in these areas. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. But I want to stress one important point and give one solution. The most valuable and overlooked quality of the Eugene model is that the service is managed by an independent third party, not a city bureau or department, not the police. I'm going to go about one more paragraph. Not the fire department. That really won't work. But there is a compromise. The Eugene model uses EMTs embedded with social workers. Why not contract with a suitable independent third-party vendor and then embed EMTs from the fire bureau into that service? That's a model that's been tested up in Olympia right now with the same CAHOOTS model, and it's worked very well. And the fire department has great EMTs and paramedics that could work easily with a third party. So it's a good solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason, for being here today. As you know, we have certainly gone to Eugene and reviewed the CAHOOTS model, and it has a lot of things that are very positive about it. But as you may know, it took them 30 years to actually create the model that they have today. We in Portland don't have that long to wait to get to a model that actually is intentional about sending the right first responder to the right incident at the right time. As of today, we don't know what the pilot will look like because we are actually gathering data, first from those most impacted, then from service providers, then from folks who are today on the front line of these calls. When 30% of the new calls to 911 are for unwanted people, That's a problem. And cahoots or any other model won't change this perception of unwanted people in our community. The amount of public safety dollars that we spend today, because when you call 911, when you don't know who to send, you send everybody. You send fire, police, and the ambulance. And many times, none of the above is the right responder. I hope that you will keep an open mind as we start both providing data from the surveys and the work sessions that we've had over the last 4 months. I hope you'll keep an open mind as we start building something that's Portland-centric and not taking a model from somewhere else and just plopping it down in the city of Portland. Some things Eugene has, Portland doesn't have, and vice versa. And so we're at the beginning stages. We're gonna bring back a proposal to the city council in November. I hope you'll be a partner in helping us move this forward. But so far, what I know is that we today spend a lot of resources in trying to address who shows up as a first responder, and we could spend those resources smarter, and we could weave a better system together. And I'm appreciative that the mayor and the rest of the city council is really supportive of us being innovative and really thinking about what's the best model for the city of Portland. So I thank you.
I also want to join the chair section here. First of all, I think the collaboration that we now have amongst the public safety bureaus, the first responder bureaus, is a critical and necessary step. And Commissioner Hardesty and I went down separately and we looked at cahoots, and I think we reached a lot of the same conclusions about the model. Some things are really attractive, very appealing, work really well. Some things are problematic. One of the things that they self-identified as being problematic is something I want to pigeonhole you on while I've got you here, because there's probably nobody with more expertise in our community than you on this question. When their first response, their street response, is very effective, in my opinion. And anecdotally, it seems to suggest that the community is very happy with their first response. The problem is when somebody is truly in crisis, they manage the crisis and they de-escalate the crisis. And that in and of itself is a victory. But where they're still coming up short is there is not necessarily a treatment bed available. There's not necessarily supportive housing that's available for somebody who truly needs longer-term care. And so they find that from time to time, they're going back to a lot of the same people who are still on the streets and still in danger. And with that concern in mind, it is disappointing to both Commissioner Hardesty and to myself that the funds coming through the county for mental health services isn't expanding to accommodate what is obviously a growing crisis in our community. It's going the other way. And so I hope that you will join us as we go back down to Salem in February and seek some resolution to the question of why are mental health services and mental health dollars that are allocated from the state through the county not increasing commensurate to the need, and frankly in alignment with the model that we're trying to create here under Commissioner Hardesty's leadership of the Fire Bureau. So I feel like there's a partnership to be had here, because you obviously support the model, the commissioner supports the model, I support the model. This council voted extra dollars even above what the bureaus requested so that we could get this pilot fast-tracked. But there's clearly some major visible holes in the model that we need to address.
Yes, we should go in lockstep with our legislators in this district and with the county commission and with advocates to Salem to cause more monies to flow to both the mental health crisis and the addiction crisis that we're facing here. And we're not going to make a dent in the problem without more money, frankly. The county is building more subacute beds. They're building a day center. That'll be up probably about the same time that Cahoots gets up. It'll be important that those services be integrated along with police services in the day center.
But to that point, I don't want to belabor this here today. I'm truly just pigeonholing you because I can.
Yep.
My concern there, and I support that model, and it's a very important one, and our first responders support that model. The problem is it's also extremely expensive. And the concern I have longer term is that what we're seeing is the federal government and state government pushing the responsibility of acute mental health delivery to local jurisdictions. We weren't historically in the mental health business at all. And now we find ourselves into street response and mental health delivery and crisis management in a huge way. And we're not seeing resources at the federal or the state level realign to reflect that reality. And that's really concerning to me if we're talking about building a sustainable model that's more than just a pilot program.
Mayor,
Commissioner Fish.
we're now half an hour over our public communications.
Let's
and
discuss this
We're
later.
backed up.
To be continued. then.
Today, we've had these incredibly
I'll get you in a
interesting
sec.
public communications. The problem is, if we engage everybody like we did today, we're going to be half an hour backed up on time certain, every council. I hope there's a chance, because of listening to this dialogue, there's a lot of things that I'd like to know more about. I hope we have a work session at some point to actually talk about cahoots for those of us who haven't been down to see it, and also to talk a little bit about what are some of the other best practices in other cities. And Jason, you're an invaluable resource on that, so thank you.
Commissioner Daly.
Thanks, Mayor. I would just like to thank you for being here. Want to acknowledge that we have personally been having these conversations for 25 years, which is hard to believe. We have watched people that we know and care about suffer for lack of these services. And we're not going to get it right if we don't tap the expertise that already exists in our community. So I hope you will be a part of this conversation going forward.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. Last word. It's funny because Jason and I have also been having this conversation for the last 25 or 30 years.
Well, Jason and I have had this conversation for the last 40 years.
Well, you're older than I
Jason
am, so
and I
that
knew each other in a
explains it.
past life.
My grandfather started the conversation with Jason, and I inherited it, so I just want to, just in case there's any doubt here.
Let me just say that what I love about where we are in this process is no decisions have been made. We have not seen the ideal anything yet, right? Everything comes with trade-offs, and everything comes with creating the right partnerships so that the outcomes that we all want are achieved. And sometimes I'm really giddy to go over time because I think it's important that we have these conversations in the public eye. So thank you for being here, and don't be a stranger. We'll talk soon.
Found my pencil. Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you very much for raising this important issue, and I would just like to second Commissioner Fish's request for a work session on this, that community experts could be invited to. I did actually work in mental health care for 22 years here, so I would like to...
Was Jason there?
That's HIPAA protected, and I'm not going to
Commissioner
comment.
Fritz, Commissioner Fritz, based on my 30 years of working in mental health care, I think we're still learning, both of us.
Jason, I hope you come back. I'm afraid you might not, but thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Sounds
We'll
like
look
I'm
forward
doomed.
to
Thank
more
you.
of the same. Carla, have any items been pulled off of the consent agenda?
Yes, we have 5 items pulled off. Item 833, 834, 836, 837, and 839.
And Carla, who did the same person pull all those?
No, 833 and 36 were from Commissioner Hardesty's office. 834 is Dan Handelman, 837, the mayor's request, and
So-
839 is Lightning.
So 837, I'd like to move that to the September 18th agenda. There was a typo in it, but it's a fairly substantial typo, and so legal counsel had suggested that it listed the wrong labor union, and I want to make sure we get that right. So 837, I'd like to request we move that to September 18th without objection.
Mayor,
Commissioner Udaly.
as a courtesy, I'd like to request that item 833 be read somewhere towards the front of the agenda rather than the end, because we have the city attorney here to speak to it, and I think that they have more useful things to do than sit through an entire council session.
Very good. Why don't we get to the time certain items, 8:30 and 31, then we'll move that item
Thank you, Mayor.
without objection. 8:30, please.
Do we do the roll on consent?
I'm sorry, thank you. Call the roll.
Hardesty?
One item.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Consent agenda is adopted. 830, please.
830, adopt the Old Town Chinatown 5-Year Action Plan, Extension 2019-24.
Colleague, 5 years ago, the City Council adopted the Old Town Chinatown Action Plan through ordinance number 186744, which was on August 6 of 2014. The plan has been a comprehensive community development initiative to create a vibrant, economically healthy neighborhood in Old Town Chinatown, and it's resulted in a number of significant accomplishments. The plan focuses on 3 basic objectives. First, to attract new neighborhood investment to activate key properties and improve district connectivity. Second, to promote business vitality by increasing employment and retail activity. And third, align resources and build local capacity for improving district livability. Old Town Chinatown has experienced tremendous progress toward achieving these broad objectives in terms of growth, building renovation and redevelopment, and the arrival of more than 24 new businesses and retailers. Thanks to the Prosper Portland and City Bureau staff and the many members of the community who've partnered over the past 5 years to bring positive change to this neighborhood. We still have much to accomplish, of course. Prosper Portland and the community see a clear and significant need to continue investing in projects and initiatives that focus on neighborhood, business, and district vitality. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the Prosper Portland Director, Kimberly Branham. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. I'm Kimberly Branham, Executive Director of Prosper Portland. Excuse me. I'm joined by Lisa Abwoff, Director of Development and Investment. We're very pleased to be here with you today to provide an overview on the progress made on the 2014 5-year Old Town Chinatown Action Plan and to seek approval for an extension to an updated action plan. You'll hear 3 main themes this morning. The first is that public, private, and community partners have made significant progress in the last 5 years. Many of these partners are in the room with us today, and you'll hear from some later, but I want to personally appreciate the collaboration and efforts that have gone into that progress over the last 5 years. The second is that Prosper Portland and these partners remain committed to the vision of a vibrant, economically diverse neighborhood that maintains Old Town Chinatown's unique character and rich cultural assets. And the third is that there is no single entity or sector that can achieve this vision alone. Not the public sector, not the private sector, not the community. It's going to take all of us working together. We believe that the holistic, targeted interventions that you see here in front of you today provide the foundation on which this coalition can move forward. So I'm going to touch just very briefly on the context for the plans, and then Lisa's going to provide additional information on the progress that's made and the proposed update. So the Old Town Chinatown Community Association, Prosper Portland, and City Bureaus formulated the 2014 action plan based on quantitative and qualitative analysis that highlighted a lack of critical mass of retail that serves residents and visitors with a heavy density of social services and entertainment uses, some of the highest crime rates in the city, stagnant development as the economy slowly recovered, and access barriers on all sides with a lack of a left turn off of West Burnside and no stoplight at the time at Northwest Cooch and Broadway. 5 years later, it looks a little different. There's been significant employment growth, strong cultural and community organization development, an influx of young, diverse entrepreneurs, and with young, diverse entrepreneurs. We also still have retail vacancies that will provide additional opportunities for local businesses. There are continued challenges around the perception of the neighborhood and the crime rates. There are also public and private development opportunities that are poised for redevelopment. And there are—
Commissioner Hardesty,
Please.
sorry.
Sorry, Kimberly. My question, I'm struck by this perception of the crime rate in Old Town.
Sure.
Because it was my understanding that when Right to Dream 2 resided in Old Town, that there were no calls for police services in that area. And so has there been this uptick in criminal activity since Right to Dream 2 has moved out, or why? That just doesn't fit my worldview of what I understand was true there. So I'm just curious where that data came from.
So do you have additional data?
We do. We have public safety data that we could share, and just looking at it, it looks as though the sizable increase between kind of 2016, so I think it was a bit after Right to Dream 2 had moved to another location, is mostly in property crimes and society crimes relative to kind of person crimes. And we can share that. And I'm not sure, Helen Yang is also here with the Community Association. There's been a lot of work there's been a joint task force, so they can probably speak to that more directly.
I'll look forward to that, but I guess when we present this as like factual information,
Yeah.
I would love to see the data and where you got that analysis from.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And as we consider the public and private properties that are poised for redevelopment, we also acknowledge that there are continued hurdles faced in redevelopment through the concentration of unreinforced masonry and the cost hurdles associated with that, as well as the need to find replacement parking as surface parking lots move into more productive uses. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa, and then you'll hear from some of our key partners.
Thank you, Kimberly, and good morning, Mayor and Commissioners.
Morning.
As Kimberly mentioned, Prosper Portland does have a long-standing relationship with the Old Town Chinatown community that actually goes back before the action plan. We've made significant investments in projects like Land Sioux, Saturday Market, the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine, and U of O being really important anchor institutions in Old Town, as well as working with Mercy Corps. The original action plan, as the mayor mentioned, was adopted in 2014 and had the three key areas of neighborhood investment, business vitality, and district livability. And those three areas, as we went back out to the community, remain their priority. And based on our focus as Prosper Portland on business and community-based development using tax increment resources, we'll share that our investments are largely in the neighborhood and business vitality priorities, and then general fund resources have been really important contributors to the district livability priorities for the community. And Mark Jolin with the Joint Office of Homeless Services, as well as Helen Yang with the Old Town Chinatown Community Association, are here and can speak to those priorities a bit further. So again, just kind of a recap, one of the things that we reopened when we took a look at this extension was whether the geography still held true for the community, and in fact, the community did want those resources continue to be committed to the geography you see here. It's important to note it overlaps 2 historic districts, as well as 2 different tax increment financing districts, with downtown waterfront, where the sizable resources are serving kind of south of Burnside and a couple of blocks north of Burnside, and then the River District area. And that the community's priority is really along the historic avenues of 3rd and 4th Avenue. The 2014 plan was developed in close partnership with the Community Association, as has this extension, and we met with individual residents, businesses, and property owners as well within the community, and then working closely with our bureau partners, and in particular early on with the Portland Bureau of Transportation. As Kimberly mentioned, connectivity was a big issue early on, as well as the Portland Police Bureau. The Portland Police Bureau is part of the Joint Task Force. So key outcomes coming off of the 2014 plan, I'm just going to put a finer point on some of the original goals and measures of success of the original plan and where we are today. So one of the original measures of success was for 500 new moderate income housing units to be introduced into the neighborhood. That's important for this particular community. 3 out of 4 units of housing in the area is long-term stabilized affordable housing. And so a mix of income units has long been a desired outcome for the community. We're happy to say we reached 260 of those 500 new moderate income units, and some of that was thanks to a pilot SDC deduction that we're actually not asking for as part of this extension, because we feel as though both the market as well as inclusionary housing can continue to deliver on that mixed income. The projects were at 38 Davis, and then there's actually one currently under construction at Southwest 3rd and Ash that will introduce 133 new units, and then also the renovation of the Erickson Fritz. The second was this area has a sizable portion of the historic brick buildings in Portland. And so there was a goal for 5 renovated historic buildings and/or new construction. And we're happy to say buildings like Society Hotel, the Hoxton Hotel, and the Overland Warehouse, which is right behind Prosper Portland's offices, have all been renovated and preserved, as well as PNCA moving into their new campus home. Again, we had a long-standing goal for the community around really kind of digging into surface parking and understanding how to support historic buildings through the replacement of surface parking as those lots redevelop. And that continues to be an outstanding item for us to work on with the community. And as Kimberly mentioned, connectivity was one of the
Can I stop you there?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I've been getting heavy social media traffic in the last 24 hours, and social media is social media. It is what it is. But I want to dwell on this because I understand there's probably some people here today who want to know if this is a secret plan to increase parking garages. And I want to dispel a couple of myths. Number one, this plan does not actually call for any new parking. The problem here is referred to in the plan under 131 is the loss of surface parking as development happens in the community and additional retail. If there was a decision made to build more parking, that would either have to go through your board, I take it, which is public, or it would have to come to city council. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So the main question from the perspective of the proponents of the plan is replacing the surface parking that is lost to development.
Yes. I
And
think
do you
that's-
still support the goal of reducing overall car traffic coming into the city of Portland, or do you oppose
Absolutely.
that?
No, we're very supportive of that goal.
There is a number going around saying that we have supported $50 million in new parking garage construction, or are committing to $50 million in new parking garage construction. My understanding, we have 10th and Gleason,
10th and Yamhill.
and Prosper's role in that is the first floor retail development. The rest is a renovation of an existing garage facility.
Yes.
And then there was the parking related to the new headquarters hotel
Right.
on the other side of the river. And I feel like I'm missing something. What else is there?
Well, I'm not sure, but there's $50 million that's anticipated going into Old Town Chinatown for the entirety of the action plan over the next 5 years. So it sounds like people might be conflating the resources that are available that are largely going to go to the community development priorities that you're hearing.
So 1.3.1 is a reference to a community conversation about parking issues, is it
Yes.
not? Or is there more
Absolutely.
there that I'm missing?
Absolutely. And frankly, Mayor, that, the Bureau of Transportation is really in the lead on those conversations, as you would anticipate.
Well, and
so
Commissioner
we are-
Udaley's been very crystal clear about
Right.
her view with regard to people driving in. And I mean, Old Town Chinatown has some of the best public transit,
Absolutely.
probably anywhere in the state would be my guess.
Ab-
Has multiple modes.
I think that's right. I think
Okay.
we know that in order to maintain and support the long-term businesses that have been there, that are now reliant on surface parking, and to avoid displacing or having to take down those buildings or not being able to tenant them, that we need to find a solution to replace the parking, and to do so in line with the transportation system plan and with PBOT. But we are not anticipating increasing the capacity of parking.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. That helped a lot because I was getting a lot of communication as well about us spending $30 million on parking, and I didn't think that was the city I lived in, so
Yeah.
I'm glad for that clarification. I guess my question is, we are not anticipating replacing parking spots one per one, are we? We're thinking new designs, new visions, we're thinking protecting the infrastructure of some of these historic properties.
Yeah.
So is that an accurate statement?
That is an accurate statement.
I've been sitting next to him too long because now I feel like I'm actually giving the answer
Married
to the
couple.
question. Oh, it's scary. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very
That's
much,
helpful.
Commissioner.
And then the next
thing
slide.
Next thing they'll start saying Mayor Wheeler when they address you.
And then just to touch upon, the action plan also had goals around business vitality and supporting both new small businesses as well as living wage jobs in the district. And we're happy to say that the district has seen a growth of over 600 new jobs and 97 million in added wages. We've added retailers to our community, small local businesses like Mimira Mole, Charlie's Deli, Deadstock Coffee, Ground Control is expanding in the area, as well as multinationals. And we've also seen job growth occur through a similar combination, with the likes of Pencil Academy kind of expanding in the area. Anchor Moyson actually tenanted the 38 Davis. And then there's also MoveL Software, as well as the University of Oregon, as important employers in the district. And finally, particularly with relationship to the district livability, our investments have been primarily through our community livability grants that have really focused on supporting community organizations like the Chinese Garden, like Central City Concerns Employment Access Center, and like the new Portland Chinatown History Museum, which opened last year. And with that, we'll kind of reveal the updated priorities, which look very similar to the previous ones. Again, the community really felt like we were pretty on the mark in terms of the three categories that they had identified 5 years ago, and they really wanted to focus in particular areas with this renewed commitment. The renewed commitment really looks at public safety and livability, within the district livability areas. And then on behalf of Prosper Portland's investments, we have a kind of increased commitment and emphasis on equity and entrepreneurship, community organizations, and property redevelopment. So as we think about our projects, there will be a renewed commitment to thinking about the small businesses, the investment opportunities, the property owners that we're supporting. And then as we look towards kind of the future investments, what you'll note is we keep our $57 million commitment whole. And as Kimberly mentioned, the $57 million is not anticipated to be the 100% of investment or commitment that is needed to achieve the outcomes and goals of this action plan. It really will be a partnership with both community-based organizations and nonprofits who bring important resources to the table, as well as the private sector and general fund as we think about the district livability priorities for the community. And in particular, kind of more near-term and immediate focuses of Prosper Portland will be around providing ongoing support to key cultural institutions. Our board just last month actually took an action to sell a ground floor condominium unit to the Nikkei Legacy Center, which will allow it to own its space and remain long-term in the district. We are happy to announce that we're entering into development partnerships with two entities on Block 25 and 4th and Burnside. So we are pursuing partnerships with Key Development and Colas Construction on those two projects as we move forward redevelopment of those two sites, and in focusing our small business loans and grants to supporting local businesses and entrepreneurs with a particular focus on business and property owners that are owned by people of color.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. My question has to do with the $30,000 commitment from the general fund to support the community association district manager. This tools and resource guide says this is from 2019-20 to 23-24. Is that, are we making a commitment of the general fund, or are we making commitments of Prosper Portland's budget to support this over the year?
Fiscal year, right? So the general fund, it would be for just one fiscal year. Since right now, the action plan is a commitment to prioritize the resources. The way it's been operationalized is we come back each fiscal year with that request based on general fund availability.
But we were awarded it.
So I'm not sure you answered my question.
This reflects the fact that City Council in its last budget authorized $30,000, and so this just reflects that commitment for 1920.
But
Well,
to be
I
clear,
guess
it's not a guarantee.
My concern is this says 1920 to 23-24.
Oh, got it. Okay,
And
understood.
so it appears that we've made a commitment of general fund resources, so I just want the record to show that's Prosper Portland's budget and not general fund. If that commitment's being made, it can't be made from the general fund.
Okay, understood.
Am I right?
You're right.
Thank you. And then the last one has to do with the city bureaus. Your document says to support one point of contact, invest in street outreach, et cetera, and work with other bureaus. What is that going to look like?
I think that might be an opportune time to hand it over to Mark Jolin and Helen Yang, who have been participating in the joint.
Before you do that, though, because the next slide says questions. So is that questions as to the action plan?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. This is not the time to necessarily thrash out the issue, but based on the fact that LUBA has reversed us on a land use decision we made in Old Town Chinatown, which has significant consequences to development patterns, is it the position of Prosper Portland that we can live with 160 feet?
I think we are deferring to city council in terms of that decision.
Mayor, is the council going to take this up, or is it the position of the city that we can live with?
It's the position of legal counsel that the appeal run its course. The property owners have the right to appeal. It's my understanding they either have appealed or they plan on appealing. They have appealed to have, I'm being told, and legal counsel advises us not to take it up until that appeal's run its course.
Okay,
It's a fast-track appeal.
So the property owners affected, so the property owners affected by the reduction in height have a right to appeal the LUBA decision. At that point, it will come back to council. And do we have a commitment then that at such time as that appeal is heard, and those appeals are rarely successful, that it will come back to council for a decision?
Absolutely.
The second thing that I want to observe is that Director Branham, you began by saying, and I agree with you, that there's a lot to celebrate, a lot of success here. Now, the headline in all the media will be a 5-year record of failure, because that's how this has been treated from the get-go. One of the things that I think is important to acknowledge is that we learned something very powerful in Lentz and Gateway, which is the city cannot get in front of the market. We can try to prime the pump. We can try to do all kinds of things, but Lentz and Gateway didn't happen until private money came in. And it wasn't because the city had its urban renewal district necessarily. It's because private money looked at this and said, here's an opportunity to invest. And we are still waiting for additional private investment in Old Town Chinatown. But I think it would be a mistake to say that if we continue to see lackluster development, that's a function of that's of Prosper Portland and a failure. That to me is the marketplace. And as long as there are other places people are willing to invest, until such time as the money flows into this district, it's hard for you to leverage development on your own, even with, as it turns out, the changes we made in the height. The third thing I want to just observe is that you mentioned Lansu Chinese Garden in a slide earlier, and I don't know that my colleagues are fully briefed on this, but there is a historic opportunity to acquire a land owned by Northwest Natural, which is to the north of Lansu. And just like the Japanese garden has gone through a major renovation and a $36 million upgrade, if without land, Lansu cannot expand its footprint. So the $4 million in the budget is dedicated to acquiring that land. Those negotiations continue with Northwest Natural. The Parks Bureau may have a role to play.
Yes.
There may be some environmental issues with the dirt that you're going to explore.
Yes.
And in your due diligence. And I understand you've asked for an extension of time for those
Yes.
negotiations of up
Yes.
to 9 months. Is that correct?
That's all correct, yes.
Okay, and I just want to say, Mayor and colleagues, this is one of the most exciting opportunities. And I'm thinking that somewhere Vera Katz is smiling.
Yeah.
That this land is available for the expansion of the Lansu, because without this opportunity, Lansu would continue to be a treasured resource, but constrained by its own footprint. And I wholeheartedly support the acquisition of the Northwest Natural land and the vision of a cultural center, an expanded footprint, and then potentially a hotel that serves the whole district. So I just want to put that on the record.
Very good. Commissioner Fritz? No? Commissioner Daly?
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the presentation. Excellent. Carla, do we have people signed up for public testimony?
Yes, we have 5 people
Very
signed up. The first 3, please come on up, are Shedrick J. Wilkins, Lightning, and Ruth Ann Barrett.
I thought we were going to have Helen.
I thought there were invited speakers.
Kimberly, do we have invited testimony on this?
We do. Yeah, I show Mark Jolin and Helen Ying.
Oh,
are
okay.
invited.
I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and do that. I apologize. They're invited speakers, so they're part of the presentation. So you might want to hold off until their testimony is complete. Well, they might give you more items to talk about as well. Sorry. Thank you. Good morning, Helen. Sorry about that. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning. You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. So thank you for inviting us to come. And I just wanted to first acknowledge we're excited. The Old Town Community Association is excited about the extension that we're coming to ask for your approval for the 5-year action plan. First, I just want to say the first 5 years, Commissioner Fish mentioned that the public might see that it was a failure, but actually it has helped us to lay a firm foundation. Right? The 5-year action plan is actually an excellent model of public and private partnership. And we, as a community association, is at a different space. The community, the neighborhood is in a different space today. And particularly, I want to mention that the board of the community association is a different makeup than what it was 5 years ago. And particularly, just want to mention that it consists of 4 residents, 2 social service representatives, an educational institution representative, art, history, and culture institution representative, and 4 business representatives, and both representing the day business and the night business. I just want to give you a broad stroke of how comprehensive this board is made up of. And earlier, I think Commissioner Hardesty had asked about the funding piece for the district manager. We actually have taken time to reflect back on what should be the role of this contractor that we are contracting. And so we have actually created a new title and a new set of focus for the contractor. We are calling the contractor a community development director. So his work is more than just managing a district, but really to help develop the neighborhood. And I just want to invite you personally to come on September 14th. Our community development director has helped us organize a festival for that day. It's the Old Town Creatives Art Festival. It starts at noon, and it goes to midnight, actually, because we have this bridge of day and night businesses. And we're going to be featuring underrepresented artists during that festival. And so now that Commissioner Hardis is back, I want to mention about the funding that you had questioned earlier. So the 5-year action plan had dedicated funding to help with hiring someone to come and help with the revitalization work, and it's $30,000 grant per year. And we're in the 4th year, and we're glad that the city has continued with this grant for 4 years in a row. But the community itself has raised the $30,000 matching for that grant over the long haul. And going forward, we're committed to continue to raise the money, but the entire amount ourselves. So we've already raised over $120,000 over the period of time, and we're on track to meet the goal this year. And going forward, we are developing a sustainable model to fund this position so that we don't have to continue to just keep raising money. And so we're looking at, we're becoming a 501c3, the community association is, and we're looking into a business membership model where we could, ask the businesses to support this work. So really, again, it's that public-private partnership model. So recently, we're excited.
Commissioner, one moment. Commissioner Hardesty, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Helen, for that information. So I want to be clear. I absolutely know the need of having paid staff to help coordinate the work. It was really an internal question that I had. What pot of money was Prosper Portland going to use in order to keep their commitment, right? And so the conversation was really about them not committing the city council to general fund resources, which are limited. But as long as they're committing their budget, I'm totally fine with that, right?
Okay.
So that was the question. It had nothing to do with the need and the support of this public-private partnership. So I just want to be clear about that.
Thank you for that. And I just wanted to mention this because I wanted to highlight how much the private part, the community association is dedicated to raising the funds to match this grant from the city. And I just want to also, just give some examples of new energy coming into the neighborhood. You already heard about all the different entities that have joined the neighborhood. And recently, the Tribune had an article about the revitalization work that's going on. And OPB just invited us yesterday to be on their Think Out Loud to talk about the new energy that's happening in the neighborhood. So we're excited about that. And lastly, another point I want to make is regarding the work that Mark Jolin, Director of the Joint Office, has helped us. As you might remember, we have come before you, is it 3 years ago, Mark? I'm trying to remember when it was, when the city and the county wanted to site another shelter in the neighborhood, and we had fought to say, because we already have an over-concentrated number of social services in the neighborhood, and we cannot add anymore. And when the city said, that we're going to go ahead and do it anyways, we said we have to have a task force to really come up with a set of comprehensive strategies to help mitigate the livability and public safety issues in the neighborhood, and also address, the social service needs in the neighborhood. So the task force actually came together and was formed with the help of Mark's office, and we started our work in April of 2018.
Yep.
April 2018, and we completed the work May of this year in terms of coming up with the strategies. We have 55, and we'll be coming to you again to present more in depth what both those 55 strategies are, but we actually also form an implementation committee, because we know if we just have strategies sitting, in some writing, it doesn't do any good. So we have an implementation committee that's organized. We are in our second month of that, and we already chose 6 strategies that we're going to actually start implementing. And one of the things that I'm actually organizing is the education piece. We're coordinating the collaboration of our social service providers. We have met twice already since then, and we're having a series of open houses to inform and educate the social service providers so that how they could work better together in the neighborhood. These are all the Old Town social service providers, starting with the first open house on September 26th. Then after the first series of that set of open houses, we're going to open up to the public, a broader public, to help everyone to understand. We would invite you to come and participate as well, what kind of services are available, and who the people are that are being served, and how can the public be a part of, this ongoing need that we have to meet the needs of our people who need social services.
Thank you, Helen.
Mayor?
Commissioner Fish, then Commissioner Fritz.
Helen, you've provided such stalwart leadership, not just in the action plan, but with CCBA and with all the good things that are happening. So you have our debt of gratitude. And I'm just curious, if at some point the Greyhound bus company and the buses leave the where they're currently from the bus terminal, and we have an opportunity to reimagine that part of Old Town Chinatown. What's on your wish list?
Wow. Well, one of the things that we have always worked toward is having a balance in our neighborhood. What has caused some of the things that have inhibited us or barriers is because the imbalance is going on right now, right? So in order to have balance, we need to have people living in our neighborhood. So housing is a big priority for us. And so, it's hard for me to just post something out in there to answer that question right now. But I do believe, having a thoughtful process involving the community, as we have over time with like the 4th and Burnside parcel and the Block 25 parcel. Those were all very helpful conversations where we engaged stakeholders to come up with an informed set of recommendations.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Fritz.
Helen, thank you so much for all the volunteer work you do with the Community Association. And it's really exciting to hear that you're able to self-fund the development. What's the term you used?
It's a community development director.
that the community development director, that the kind of the seed money that the council put in 5 years ago was matched, and now that the businesses are so vibrant in Old Town Chinatown that they can take on that funding ongoing. So congratulations, thank you for all that you do with the community association. It's really much appreciated, and you're a great partner.
Thank you, Commissioner Fish.
Thank you, Helen. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Mark Joel, and I'm the Director of the Joint Office of Homeless Services. I'll probably touch on a number of points that Helen just also spoke to in terms of the task force, but it'll give you a little more historic context for some of the recommendations that we made and that I think are also advanced through the extension or the proposed extension of the 5-year plan. So for a little over a year, the Joint Office of Homeless Services supported the work of a task force that started out as just Old Town Chinatown, but later expanded to include the Pearl District. The task force, as Helen said, first came together in response to the plan to site a new shelter for people experiencing homelessness on Northwest Hoyt. From the beginning, the charge of the task force was more than just planning for the new shelter. The city and the county, through the joint office, committed, as part of the discussion about the shelter, to work with local community stakeholders to develop a more comprehensive set of strategies related to public safety and the improvement of social service delivery in the neighborhood. And from the beginning, there was a recognition that the work of this task force should align with the Old Town Chinatown 5-year action plan that was already in place. When the Navigation Center replaced the proposed Hoyt Street shelter, the Pearl District became part of the task force, but the charge of the task force did not change. With input from a wide range of stakeholders, including businesses and homeowners, affordable housing tenants, social service providers, people with lived experience, and a variety of government entities from the city and county, the task force first developed a Good Neighbor Agreement for the Navigation Center, which, as you likely know, opened and welcomed its first guests last week. It will ultimately have 100 people staying at it at any given time, working on transitioning out of homelessness and back into housing. Once that Good Neighbor Agreement was complete, we developed a set of recommendations to improve social service delivery in the neighborhoods. That process started with the convening of more than a dozen social service providers and participants in services, along with the task force members, to learn how we might improve social services. The recommendations ultimately ranged from improving information about services to better coordination of services and the expansion of available services like access to behavioral health care in particular. We then used a similar process of convening practitioners and stakeholders to develop a comprehensive list of some 25 recommendations related to improving the sense of safety for everyone in the neighborhoods. These recommendations included everything from foot patrols to activating public spaces to improving training for private security to improving the responsiveness of law enforcement to the safety needs of people experiencing homelessness and to expanding criminal justice diversion programs. A number of these recommendations directly align with the larger commitments within the Old Town Chinatown 5-year action plan to improve overall community livability. As Helen said, with any set of recommendations, they are only as good as the ability to follow through on their implementations. So it is encouraging to us to see that with the proposed extension of the 5-year action plan, there is a commitment to implementing some of the aligned task force recommendations. Given the values, voices, and collaborative work that shape those recommendations, I'm hopeful that they will help Old Town Chinatown thrive and be a model of an inclusive neighborhood into the future. Thank you.
Thank you both. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you both for your presentation, and I want to echo my appreciation for Helen, who's been just a strong community volunteer for at least the last 30 years that I've known you. It may have been longer, but we won't go there. Thank you for your work. It's greatly appreciated, and we're finally seeing some results of some of the your passion in the community. So having said that, I tend to go to the dollars and cents of the matter. And when I look at the tools and resources, it's really undetermined what the investment from city bureaus are to be as we move forward. When are we going to know specifically what we're asking the city council to commit to? Because I'm already getting concerned about the next budget allocations, because I feel like we're being set up for but you said, right, you support this and you voted for this, and we're going to come back in a few months and have to put our money where our mouth is. So how soon will we have enough information to know what's the investment that other bureaus are going to be asked to make in this extension?
So I would leave that to the Prosper Portland folks, but I can assure you the vast majority of this is TIF funding. Yeah, I mean, you raised the question, and I agree with you on the $30,000 match
Right.
for the coordinator, and that's a year-by-year decision
Well,
based on the will of the council.
Well, I see that the neighborhood investment, business vitality, and district are all TIF funding, but when you go to other resources and you have the city bureaus listed with to be determined each fiscal year.
Right.
That sends warning signs off in my mind.
I don't know, Kimberly, if you have more to add to that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
I will accept the fact that this will be a future conversation, but
And
it's.
of course, the homeless services is all general fund. It's 100% at this point.
Well, which is, again, my concern of us making commitments of general fund resources so early on.
Yeah,
So,
no argument there.
thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor.
Kimberly, did you want to respond to that, or is that, we'll just leave it? Then some of it's going to be housing funds. But here, I agree with you.
Thank you. So we were just huddling with Mark because I think what we're anticipating is a mixture of continuing the work that's happening now, with the exception of the acknowledgement that City Council has invested for the last 3 years at the $30,000 level, and that this is the final year, 1920 is the final year, and the request will not be coming back. And so we want to come back and loop back with our public safety partners, with the joint office, with transportation in the event that there are outstanding priorities on their end, to have a coordinated approach. And so we should be able to do that in the coming months.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Testimony, thank you all for your patience. First three come back up.
Cedric, it seems to me you were here earlier testifying in this manner.
Deja vu or something. Okay, I'm Shedrick Wilkins. I'm a resident of Chinatown Neighborhood Association. I live in the HUD Yards apartment, which is HUD, and every morning I get up, I feel like I'm living in London, England, because I get to see Big Ben at the train station. I'm 50 feet from the Pearl District shelter that they're building, right? I see a big problem with the Bud Clark Commons is fine, all the way down to the Sisters of the Road Cafe. But I can tell you right now, I went and talked to the Sisters of the Road Cafe. Would the Pearl District shelter have any influence about the Greyhound bus station, which is a terrible situation? The city rousts people that camp there. I have to say this, and I don't want to turn on homeless people, but I do not believe people should be able to, or should camp out or camp at the bus station, anywhere near the bus station, okay? And we need to get ways to get them out of there. What I didn't like is I asked the Sisters of the Road Cafe about this, about the Pearl District shelter, would allow people places to go around the bus station, and the Sisters of the Road Cafe is not interested at all. They believe in camping rights, that people have the right to camp around the Greyhound bus station. It wouldn't matter anyway, they're rousted every other day. And that's a central transportation spot. Chinatown Neighbor has the only helicopter pad in Portland. It's got the 2 light rail lines going right near the bus station, but it's really a bad thing there. And I could be accused of turning on homeless people. If you're going to camp nowhere else but that place, if you want to keep it look like a Swiss train station, you've got to solve that problem. Maybe you should put a gate or something where the Bud Clark Commons is, next to the Multnomah County Health Building, so the 2 people can't intermix. You could still walk over to Sisters of the Road, but the mixture of the 2 does not work, and I may turn on homeless people camped out at the Greyhound bus station, because they're going to get rousted every other day anyway. So, which makes me look at an elitist like I'm living in London, I'm over 55, I'm under HUD, I'm on food stamps, like I'm an honored London citizen, but that's the way it is. You know, put some bobbies there and keep them off the sidewalks near the bus station.
Good morning.
I'm next.
Please.
Hi, I'm Ruth Ann Barrett, and I'm a resident of Chinatown. I live a block and a half from the bus station. And I'm here, I'm going to read, I'm really here to push a little report I did that I put in through the process.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to read the two recommendations I'm making. I don't want anyone to think I'm not supporting the fact of putting the money back into Old Town. That would be kind of stupid. But I do want to point something out, and that is that I would like to see that the mandate for quote, unquote, market rate housing be eliminated in all public documents. It is totally unnecessary. You can really consider the economic mix or diversity of any building using public funds by Prosper Portland in the RFP process. It is unnecessary to mandate what I consider gentrification. Now, this gentrification is a little different than past gentrification activities in Portland, which I've come to understand has been significant, and that is we are not throwing people out. We are keeping them out. So by stating market rate housing, and I know many of you, Mr. Fish included, are much better at housing and understanding the complexity of the problem. But the first time I read market rate housing in 2014, to me that was code. That's code for white and affluent, and Asian, I might add, as that population also is affluent and part of the target for market rate housing. As all studies have shown pretty much, market rate housing means luxury housing. It's not, as they say to me as they pat my head, it's really middle-class housing or medium-income housing or middle-income housing or one of the 5 to 10 terms used to really not address who is it that you're putting that sign out. Who is included in not being able to participate in market rate housing. In this attachment, the fact of the matter is in the last 5 years, they've done great work at bringing affordable housing and market rate housing into balance. And now they're going to kick it all the way out. And so there's pie charts. And I just hope you have a chance to look at them. I think this is part of institutional discrimination. And I think you can just use the word housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lightning Super Connectome. I like the direction that Prosper Portland is going, so I do approve the extension, and I will continue to do an overview. Some of the concerns I do have just personally is that I think when you removed R2D2 out of there, you removed them out of the neighborhood. I would have much rather seen Ibrahim Mubarak be given the land and to develop a multifamily commercial type use building there under their name and to actually have the private and affordable bond money be used to do that, to show that people don't have to be moved out of the neighborhood to remain part of the neighborhood. That's gentrification, to remove all those people out of there at its highest level. And who's doing that right now? Because you didn't want them as neighbors in the community long-term. Issue number 2, I'm looking at the Union Station and the Greyhound bus facility. I'd like to see that more vibrant, almost be turned into a recreational type center, possibly a community swimming pool, other aspects, all in that location to where you enter the city through that location. You look out there and go, wow, look at the community and the people, and build it off of where the U.S. Post Office is, having little artists out there doing their artwork, community centers, just where you walk in and you come in. I just love this place. That's my first impression I saw right there. Again, I'd also like to have more negotiations on those height limits. I don't like height limits myself on buildings, and I'm sorry to say, I think a height limit, in my opinion, is the same thing as someone building a wall to keep you from going from one country to the next. Now you're building height limits to keep people from coming into those communities by building up as high as you can to have housing for them. The same concept, the same ideas, in my opinion, is what you're doing. You're no better off than someone doing a wall on the southern border. Issue number 2, I think we should extend the boundaries. As you know, Harbor of Hope is not within the boundaries of Old Town Chinatown. I don't know why that was even brought up on the Navigation Center, but my position is I would like to extend that boundary all the way out to the new baseball stadium and have that brought into the Old Town Chinatown.
Where's the baseball stadium?
It's going to be down on the waterfront, down on one of the terminals, if you just keep going down NATO Avenue all the way out there. They've already proposed it, the Diamond Project. So what I'd like to do is see that boundary taken out so that becomes part of Old Town Chinatown. And I think that's going to be representation of the energy in revitalizing Old Town Chinatown in a way that I think would bring them the investment dollars, but done in a reasonable manner, as the individual stated, to create balance. To create balance. Amazon, Old Town Chinatown, baseball stadium. Step up to the table, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks. The last two who signed up are Tony Jordan and Charles Bridgecrane Johnson.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Tony Jordan. Thank you, Mayor, for bringing up some of the concerns that I addressed over social media.
Thank you.
So specifically, I think that actually the concept that this action plan, which item 1.31, the one about parking garages, in 2017, Prosper Portland entered into a memorandum of understanding with Guardian Development around Block 33 in order to attempt to build additional several hundred spaces under a proposed development there and buy 400 or 500 parking spaces to lease some back to the development. That was probably in the tens of millions of dollars if that had gone through, which it didn't. Earlier this year, the city has done some projections on looking into expanding the NATO Davis parking garage, adding potential levels on top of that, which one of the higher estimates there was about $17 million for parking. I know they've looked into talking to the Greg Goodman family as part of the developments that they're doing to redevelop surface parking lots, which will, I mean, replacing surface parking lots, surface stalls will cost, in structured stalls, will cost $50,000 to $60,000 each. So while it's easy to say we're just replacing stalls and this isn't millions and millions of dollars, it adds up very fast to millions and millions of dollars. And while we're spending that money, if we spend that money, which I know is TIF, but still that's, from my understanding, potential property tax money that would actually go into the city's general funds or the county and come down. So this is real money, potentially. And what I am concerned about is the loss of opportunity when we spend, if you're removing a parking space from a surface lot, and then you're going to build a structured spot for $50,000 or $60,000, you're spending $50,000 or $60,000 to remain one commuter spot into downtown. And that's going to take you 20, 30 years to pay off. How else could we spend that money now, today? How many bus passes can that buy? How much additional transit can that buy? How much housing can that underwrite? These are, and to say that, if we're replacing these one-to-one, we need to reduce car trips. So if we're replacing them, we're not reducing. And we're actually adding a lot of parking in the post office. A lot, right? That Broadway redevelopment it's right there on the edge. And there is a lot of parking going in there. So to argue that we're somehow going to run out of parking in downtown, I mean, we need to reduce the number of trips. It's already congested. So I think that in the light of, this is fossil fuel infrastructure, freeways, parking garages, Zenith oil terminal. I mean, those are all things that, like, we're at an inflection point. And I just argue that this is not leadership that we should be doing. We should be shutting down the idea that we're going to build parking garages with public money in this city in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Charles Bridgecrane Johnson for the record. Here to the not real need for parking garages in an area that's served by more max stops than most people could ever imagine being close to. So parking garages with helicopter garages on top, not the way we need to go. It is interesting to just look at this area because it's not, the action plan is not just Old Town Chinatown. We're going all the way from kind of southwestish across the river. The new things that haven't been mentioned, the new Wyndham World Resort over there by Pine Street Market, Kells, all that is down there in the Skidmore Historic District. Inside here, we have another, what we, for some strange reason, still insist on calling the new Chinatown, Japantown Historic District. Fortunately, we did hear that Nikkei Foundation has made an arrangement, I guess, with their landlord or their property owner to, I don't know if they're going to own the whole building or condo the space. But I think it's hard for you to even make decisions on what to do here because the information here includes a 10-page glossy, but not very many facts. It doesn't break down the percentage land use that's currently with surface parking and specifically talk about it. You know, right? The map, this little gray and white map is inaccurate. There's still an undeveloped lot where Right to Dream 2 was. Right now, you go stand at the Chinese gate. We know that that property, which I believe was bought by PDC, hasn't dovetailed with the market, as Commissioner Fish pointed out. The market is really in control, regardless of what we do with incentive financing, supposedly. It was interesting that he mentioned the Greyhound station because if you were ever to go in the Greyhound station, that's sort of below your pay grade, that what you make as commissioners now. When you go in the Greyhound station on the south side, near the loo, are about 20 toilets that we have security guards that prohibit residents of Portland from ever getting close to those toilets. So when we talk about the smell of urine and feces in Old Town Chinatown, it's the intentional policy of the City Council and the Portland Development Commission to make toilet access in the train station and in the bus station difficult to impossible. So, you know, shut up about the urine and feces smell there until you take the proper action to make people get to the toilets that they need. I was glad that the gentleman talking about the parking situation mentions that. It's kind of also weird that we have this action plan and it doesn't dovetail with what's still a post office and also a food cart parking garage or parking lot. You know, the backside of the post office still has these supposedly distressed entrepreneurs who were stunned that we're going to get a Marriott Corporation, Ritz-Carlton in their business place. That's out of the district. But we need facts and comprehensive planning, not a glossy brochure. Thank you.
Very good. This is a resolution. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Hardesty?
I think there's a lot to be excited about and extending this agreement for Old Town Chinatown. I am very concerned that the city, I am hopeful that the city will be a better partner this time and that we're much more thoughtful about really what it is we're hoping to achieve with this ongoing action plan. I believe that we have the opportunity to do it right. I am concerned about how delayed we are going to be based on the appeals that are taking place and what will or will not come out of that. But I think I'm comfortable in knowing that there's a vision that's working very cooperatively with the neighborhood. I do have some concerns about what clean and safe will look like in this new extension. How are we decriminalizing a lot of transient houseless people who live in that area? And how we can be less reliant on law enforcement responses to people who, quite frankly, are ill or have nowhere else to go. It is heartbreaking to see the people that hang out in Old Town all day, every day, with no access to resources. And so I hope this helps to build or revitalize businesses in Old Town, as well as take a humane approach to the people who are trying to survive on the streets outside of Old Town as well. So I vote aye.
Daly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Well, first I need to declare a potential conflict of interest because I own a home in this plan area with my son and daughter-in-law, which I didn't own when we first adopted it in 2014. I'm really pleased with, as Helen Ying said, the foundation that the first 5 years has bought, and definitely now is not the time to take our foot off the gas. Really excited that the community association, which is a neighborhood association and a business association, and they really do a great job of responding both to the historical aspects of their neighborhood and to working together to do really great things. And thank you to Prosper Portland, the outreach that you've done on this extension with 6 public meetings and all the other outreach has been exemplary. I'm very excited to support it. I'm very pleased that we're not continuing the system development charge exemption. That was, I think I voted against it in the first place because of that issue.
I think you and I both did.
Yeah, so I'm happy to see that maybe that helped, maybe it didn't, but I'm glad it's not going forward because as in all the other areas, we need to continue to maintain our infrastructure and to make sure that newcomers pay into the system. So with that, I'm very happy to thank the staff and vote aye.
Fish.
Well, excellent presentation. Thank you to Director Branham and her staff for giving us an update. Thank you to Helen Ying and to community members for taking time to come testify. Helen, you deserve some kind of medal for the work you've done. I'm not just talking about your marriage to Stephen, I'm talking about your work on this project. We have lots of things going on in my bureaus that interact with Old Town Chinatown. We're about to put in new sewers that unfortunately will be disruptive, but will make sure that the infrastructure is updated for the next 100 years. The opportunities with the post office site redevelopment give us a chance to reimagine the North Park blocks and the pivot at PNCA to the new park spacing, park spaces that have been imagined for the post office site. I think the North Park blocks at some point are going to be in the queue for a refresh. The lot in front of the Pacific Northwest College of Art, which is now a parking lot, is actually parkland, and at some point needs to be developed in harmony with what we're doing to the north and the south. I'm very excited about the prospects of supporting the Lansu Chinese Gardens expansion plans, and I hope someday for there to be not only a cultural center there, but a hotel and a world-class dim sum restaurant. But that's very exciting, and Parks has a role to play on that. At some point, I'd like to see Darcell's legacy in this district highlighted in a more profound way. I think we're going to have, as a council, a chance in the future to talk about that. But Darcell has had such a profound impact on Old Town Chinatown. I think we can do better. Good report. You know, what's going to happen is that by the time the Luba appeal is finished, there's going to be a recession. And so we're going to be even further backed up in terms of development. But, you know, to Lightning's point about height, I just got back from a vacation where I was in New York, and they had built these point towers for wealthy people that went up into the sky as far as you could see. And first of all, I don't know who'd want to live in one because they actually sway quite a bit. They're so narrow. And second, no one could afford one. The top unit at one of these buildings sold for $240 million. Wow. But third, it destroyed it destroyed this sort of harmony of Manhattan's skyline. We have to remember that Old Town Chinatown includes a historic district, and we have to be also mindful that when we cast shadows in that district, it affects things like the Lansu Chinese Garden. So we have to be cognizant of that. And I hope, my own personal view is, I hope the Luba appeal fails and we come back and adopt a 160-foot rule, because I think that makes more sense. Anyway, thank you very much for the presentation. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Well, I want to thank everybody who was involved in this, Director Branham, Lisa Boff, Helen, thank you again for your longstanding leadership, Mark Jolin, who was here to give a presentation on the homeless services. Many people came together from the Community Association to help shape this extension. It's comprehensive. It focuses on neighborhood investment, business vitality, district livability, and a whole host of other issues. And it is an excellent plan to build on the progress that's been made since 2014, and I'm strongly supportive of it. I just want to thank everybody for having this vision, and I look forward to continuing to help lead in the capacity that I can with the Joint Office and Prosper Portland and the Housing Bureau and other bureaus in my portfolio. I'm 100% behind this effort, and this is a great example of what happens when the community leads. Thank you. I vote aye. Next item, and the resolution is adopted. Next item, 831, and I've asked Kimberly if she could keep this one. Lisa, are you presenting?
Yeah.
Very good. If we could keep this one a little short, I'd appreciate it.
831, adopt the 21st Amendment to the Oregon Convention Center Urban Renewal Plan.
So, colleagues, we've seen the city's vision, investment, and long-term commitment to collaboration transform the Lloyd District in recent years. And as the district's grown into a vibrant Inner East Side hub for employment, for housing, for entertainment, the partners involved in the implementation of the Oregon Convention Center plan never lost sight of one of the foundational elements that was called for in the plan, and that is the development of a convention center hotel to support and strengthen the convention center. Our partners at Metro have done an outstanding job of moving the hotel from vision to reality and to the point now where the end of construction is fast approaching. Throughout the design, the development, and construction process, the partners acknowledged the critical role that visitors and guest parking would play in the viability of the 600-room hotel. I'm pleased that Prosper Portland stepped in to contribute to the adjacent property for the development, ensure the project's overall success, and provide a long-term district amenity. I felt strongly that we also had a tremendous opportunity to leverage the garage development and potentially maximize density in this vibrant district. With that in mind, I directed Prosper Portland to explore the potential of utilizing the air rights above the garage for the possible development of a commercial office tower. The air right refinement work is now underway. While we don't know what the final outcome is going to be, I'm excited by the potential of offering the district and the city as a whole a viable and cost-effective solution to help address future public and private sector office space needs. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa. Good morning again.
Morning. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and Council. I'm Lisa Abwoff. I'm the Director of Development and Investment with Prosper Portland. And the action that's before you today is requesting to amend the Oregon Convention Center Urban Renewal Area Plan. And the action really would just not preclude a public entity or a public partner participating in the office development currently under design above the garage that's supporting the Convention Center Hotel. This action is based on the requirements of the Oregon Convention Center Urban Renewal Area Plan that was adopted by City Council ordinance back in 1989, which requires that we bring these amendments before Council for approval should we be pursuing a project that could include a public building, and that such amendments explain how the building could serve or benefit the Urban Renewal Area Plan. We believe the development of the office tower above the Convention Center Hotel garage advances the purposes of the original plan, which included maximizing the regional job potential of the area as an economic anchor, and by encouraging and supporting industries and businesses to locate in the area. We have three key areas that we've really been focused on in the Convention Center TIF district. And 100 Multnomah is located really smack dab in the middle between two and which is the MLK Grand and the Rose Corridor areas. And it really offers a key opportunity to introduce new commercial development and to maximize the use of that site, introducing mixed use to the garage. And it's located just to the north of the Convention Center and just to the west of the new Convention Center Hotel. The Oregon Convention Center area has reached its maximum indebtedness, and the resources that we have available are what remain in the investments. And what you saw when we brought kind of our proposed budget before you is that we are focusing our investments in those key areas of the Rose Corridor, Broadway, Weidler, and the MLK Grand commercial couplets with a focus on job density increase in the district. Just a brief kind of snapshot of the 100 Multnomah office project. Our intent, as expressed during the design review process, and as the mayor mentioned, was his instruction was never to build a standalone parking garage, but in fact to come back with an office tower above the garage. To that end, we've been moving forward with that two-phase approach of design and construction on the garage. It's about to be completed and opened concurrently with the hotel. And then we have been undertaking design of the office tower in anticipation of construction over the next year or two. The office tower will be approximately 100,000 square feet and runs at kind of that north edge and right above the garage tower. What you see here are the renderings that we have been taking before the Bureau of Development Services land use process. And we've been working with BDS to ensure that we're staying on schedule and within the current building code, which is anticipated to change at the end of this year. Currently, based on our board instruction, we're preparing to list the design product that gets completed this year as fully entitled product on the market, and we wanted to make sure that we are not precluding a public partner from participating in the eventual tenanting and/or development of the project. We are aware of the city's current space assessment needs work, as well as other public partners' potential interest in the project, which is why we're before you today. We will also be marketing the property with a broker for private tenants and/or developer interests, and this actually in no way assumes a public tenant or partner. We have been undertaking outreach to the community, both through our budget process as well as just regular updates. And we've kept community partners apprised of the 100 Multnomah project throughout pre-development, design review, et cetera, as well as our intent to bring this action before City Council today. And both groups are supportive of the project and our agency's investment in it, particularly because it brings mixed use to this particular site and to this area of the Lloyd District. And with that, I will turn it over for any questions.
Commissioner Hurdsty.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that presentation. So am I to understand this will be a city-owned building?
No, it just doesn't preclude the city's opportunity or another public partner such as Metro, TriMet, State, et cetera, from tenanting or developing the project. But it will not be a city-owned building. Right now, what is owned, the air rights are owned, and the design product is owned, and that's what we'll be marketing for sale.
And so you're selling the air rights to a private entity that's then going to build an office building that will be at market rate? Is that accurate?
That's correct. Or to a public partner if a public partner is interested in purchasing the design and the air rights.
So I don't expect you to answer this, but I would hope Lloyd Districts has a lot of small businesses that are being priced out. And as we continue to develop or imagine what the future could hold, I'm just wondering if Prosper is having conversations about how do we protect small entrepreneurial businesses, especially in an area that has excellent public transit. And so I would hope that that would be held in the same esteem as what can you sell the air rights for, right, to the highest bidder. I think the city might have a public interest in making sure that small businesses are able to thrive in the Lloyd Center area. And I don't see just selling it to the highest bidder fulfilling that mission. So you may not, just a comment. I
Yeah.
don't know who's the right person to respond to that, probably Kimberly, but I am concerned that once you sell the air rights, it's gone, so.
Well, and it's certainly something we can take back as we think about how we're listing it with the broker. And then also, it is something we've been considering for the ground floor retail. There's actually a small footprint of ground floor retail to think specifically about that, about how small retailers and/or commercial interests could be located on the ground floor of the existing garage structure.
Very good. Thank you. Public testimony, 2 minutes each, please.
Yes, we have one person signed up, Charles Bridge Crane Johnson.
Good morning, Commissioners, again. Charles Bridge Crane Johnson, and I apologize that I didn't do the historical research, but I'm sure at least two of you remember 21st Amendment gave women the right to vote. Was that? So obviously something completely different here when we talk about the fancy bureaucratic language for the air rights to have an office tower on the west side of the new Hyatt Convention Center Hotel. It's kind of outrageous and insulting to your constituents that we can say 100,000 square feet without talking about how many floors this might be. It's not a big deal because it is a big deal financially and visually because, as Commissioner Fish just talked about, shadows and spires, we have the glass spires signature landmark, the twin glass spires of the Oregon Convention Center Hotel. And perhaps it will be incurred by a freeway expansion that this city has not uniformly opposed. I appreciate everybody on this council who has told ODOT, no more new lanes, Rose Quarter 5 expansion right here, but it'll be great to be marketing 100,000 square feet that's going to directly abut the expanded I-5 at the Rose Quarter. So let's try and work comprehensively here on the greater good, not just piecemeal. It would be great if somebody directly asked, what kind of air right limitations do we have? Can they go no higher than the hotel, higher than the hotel? But when it gets down to the average citizen, the most important thing that was talked about was what's going to happen in the retail and how do we keep, even if there's a recession, how do we get good working jobs in that little pedestrian area approaching the Rose Quarter Transit Center, keep things vibrant in the Moda Center so that there is business activity, people can afford to live. Just 2 blocks away, shortly the mayor and y'all will be going to open a new public housing project that's on Grand across from the hotel. So great to have some workspace jobs, but people, when they hear about you doing these things, would like to know how tall of an office tower and air rights are we talking about? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yes, my name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Super Connectome. One of the concerns I had on this is that you stated you wanted to do primarily office, and I was thinking, why not do a mixed use with apartments and office? Due to the fact we have a housing shortage, so I don't know if that can still go in that direction or not, and why they may not want to do that. I'd like to hear that. Now, on the air rights, I haven't heard any idea on where this price will be negotiated. And a question I don't know if was answered yet is, who actually owns this property? I'd like to hear that statement. I'd like to know who the owner is and to have a clear understanding on this type of a project we're talking with the air rights. So yeah, I have some concerns on this, some hesitations, and again, talking on the height limit. What are we talking, the height of the Convention Center Hotel? I assume this has been approved at the same level. So I think there's a lot of things that are really unclear here. And again, I don't know if I want to have this even move too much farther till we have some of those answers, especially who is the owner of this property? Was this negotiated with one of the major hotel owners that had a problem with the convention center and Metro decided to slide him over a property to keep the litigation from going after them to stop that project? Is he the owner of this property? And that would be, I believe, Mr. Sunderland, if I'm correct, was in those negotiations?
Sunland.
Sunland, okay, yes, sir. Is he the owner of this property, Mr. Fish?
I think we can ask. I'm not.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, very good, sir. Thank you for your time.
You should put Portland Maps up on the screen, portlandmaps.com.
Thank you both. Lisa, anything you'd like to respond to there?
Sure. I was just going to add, the rendering that I showed is what has been approved by Design Commission as we go through. So it'll be about 10 stories, just to answer that question, which is within the entitlement. And then the property, the air rights are owned by Prosper Portland. The garage is owned jointly between Prosper Portland and TriMet, who owns a portion, the ground floor portion, and a portion of the parking. And then we have a long-term lease with the Convention Center Hotel because it did build without any parking, so it provides all of the parking that was needed for the hotel. So the garage is co-owned between Prosper Portland and TriMet, and there will be a third, we own the air rights today, there could be a third-party ownership for the air rights.
And to the question about why not include residential, is it zoning, is it?
It's actually, we've prioritized it around office, given the access to transit, and that Lloyd District is a really important job center, and that tends to be how we kind of promote our properties first and foremost for jobs. As was mentioned, I think the Housing Bureau doesn't have a significant amount of remaining resources, and so most often when we're partnering on housing projects, we're partnering with the Portland Housing Bureau around mixed income and/or affordable housing.
But why not give if a private developer is going to buy the air rights, why not give them the option of
We could certainly
residential or
consider it, yeah.
mixed use? I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly don't have a strong feeling on this. I wouldn't want to live on Grand or MLK, whatever street it's facing, I'm not clear, but it's at least worth considering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. To Commissioner Udaley's point, it's directly across the street from a lot of brand-new apartment complexes, right? So I don't think housing would be like a top priority, but I agree that if you're selling the air rights, and if you're going to sell the air rights, then it should be up to the person doing the development, unless we have clear criteria for who should be invited to apply, especially if they're making sure that we have permanently affordable housing for small business, business space for small businesses. We are not investing in small businesses at all in a way that's going to help them thrive over the long haul. And so I'm just concerned we keep making the advantages for the big ones, but the small ones are still suffering.
So I want to make sure that we are also selling the design product, so we could certainly list it as the air rights for kind of any use, and then the air rights plus the design product for office use. Because what we have been taking forward is an office, because when we designed the garage specifically to carry a commercial use above.
Okay.
And I'm just curious, is the garage going to be really expensive? Because it cost a small fortune before we did the expansion with the hotel. So what's going to be the rate at this garage?
So right now, it's being priced, the pricing mostly for again, the majority of it's being used by the hotel, so the hotel is setting the pricing via valet parking, and then we have access to it on off times, or if it's not being used at full capacity for the hotel, and so the pricing's at our discretion.
I can't help but resist just noting, and I know we've got Commissioner Udaley's thing backed up, and I feel bad for people going to be waiting because we're just getting the meat of our agenda here. But we had testimony about the affordable housing development on Grand Street. And again, in the old days, when that property was in the portfolio of the Portland Development Commission, it was slated to be a luxury hotel. And when it transferred to the new Portland Housing Bureau and then was subject to the guidelines of affordable housing, we ended up with the vision that we currently have, which is affordable housing there on a fantastic location. So I couldn't be prouder of that. So thank you very much.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Resolution's adopted. We are going to read
833.
833 and 834 together, please.
833, pay bodily injury lawsuit of Edward Gorman in the sum of $145,000 involving the Portland Bureau of Transportation.
And 834, please, because I think it's the same team that's going to describe both.
I lost it
No?
here, sorry. 830.
No, wait, sorry.
It's a
Am I
different.
wrong on that?
It's separate.
Just one after another, but we don't want to read them together.
You don't want to blend them?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, 833, and we'll go ahead and hear from staff on that. And who pulled 833? Okay, very good.
And Mayor, while this involves PBOT, it's coming from OMF, so it's your item, but I would just like to add that because the settlement hasn't been agreed to, we have to be somewhat careful about what we ask and what we say. because it could change the analysis and change the settlement.
Yeah, thank you for that admonishment. When it comes to lawsuits and settlements, I say virtually nothing. I let legal counsel speak for me. Good morning.
Good morning. Randy Stenquist, City's Risk Management Office. With me is Ashley Carter, City Attorney's Office, and Louis Waldrop.
Louis Wardrop, City Traffic Engineer.
So the matter before you is to resolve some litigation involving a bicycle versus TriMet bus collision on December 1st, 2015. The location where this occurred is one
Could
of
you
the...
speak up a little, or pull the mic closer?
Sure.
I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Better?
Thank you. Yeah, better, thanks.
The location where this occurred is one of the most complex multimodal intersections in the city. Light rail, heavy rail, a dedicated bus lane, a multi-use path for pedestrians and cyclists, motor vehicles and bicycles sharing multiple roads, and numerous crosswalks, marked crosswalks, all converge several blocks from the east end of the Tillicum Bridge. Mr. Gorman was moving through the intersection on his bicycle on what he believed was an exclusive green signal for him when he collided with the side of the TriMet bus to his right, which was also moving through the intersection on a green light. Mr. Gorman suffered multiple injuries, including broken bones, which resulted in multiple surgeries. Mr. Gorman's attorney filed a lawsuit in 2017 against the city and against TriMet, alleging negligence by the city for design and maintenance of various components of the intersection, which resulted in an unreasonably dangerous condition for bicyclists and others moving through it, in his words. In September of 2018, the parties attempted a mediated settlement of this matter with no success. As a trial date approached in 2019, we tried again with Risk Management, City Attorney's Office, TriMet, PBOT, all attended a judicial settlement conference with a state court judge in an effort to come up with a reasonable solution to the matter. We did propose, and this agreement before you, this settlement agreement, is what the result of that settlement conference was. So this is to resolve the litigation in exchange for $145,000, inclusive of all of Mr. Gorman's attorney fees, medical bills, and other related costs.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I pulled this off the agenda because, as you know, I'm always concerned when we have big claims that we're paying out. And I've had some really good conversation with risk management because I'm trying to understand whether or not the city's bond rating, the city's insurance is at jeopardy when we pay out these enormous claims like this. And so not specifically to this one, but this one is a large six-figure dollar amount, which is not a normal settlement for us. And as I looked at our consent agenda, we had a few of those on it. And so I wanted to have the conversation really about what is the danger, what are the risks that we're in if we continue to have a multitude of traffic accidents and other issues that we have to end up paying out these significant claims. Did that make sense? Or?
It does, and I will defer to the bond question to the risk manager. I know that you've reached out to him already, and he can follow up on that. But as to the other claims that my office gets involved in settling some of, the money that we use to do that in every case is coming out of what's called the Insurance and Claims Fund. That fund is derived from essentially premiums that each of the bureaus pay to Risk for the services that we provide. Those monies are essentially held in reserve for covering the claims that come through that we wind up paying on, or the legal defense of cases that we are not paying on. So that's where the funding source is for all of these things. Each bureau pays an amount every year based on their loss history, their exposure. Some bureaus have a higher exposure, say the police bureau out there driving 24/7 than, say, planning and development has a fairly low exposure. So their formulations are calculated based on the number of claims, the type of exposure that they have. For auto accidents, one of the calculations is the number of miles driven by that bureau. So every year they come up, accounting comes up with a allocation that each of the bureaus pays, and that's the money that we are accessing to pay on claims.
Thank you. And is that, have you ever not had sufficient resources to pay claims?
No, ma'am. The city self-insures for the first $1 million on these types of claims. And so we have excess insurance coverage available to us above that $1 million limit. We very rarely tap that layer of insurance, but it is available if we need to.
That answers my questions. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a public testimony on this item, Carla?
I know Lightning wish to testify.
2 minutes each, please.
Yes, my name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Super Connectome. One of the biggest concerns I've always had is, and I think it was brought up, is on the insurance itself, or do we tap into a general fund? Now, what I found interesting here is that a statement was made, we're self-insured up to $1 million. Now, the way I hear that, maybe I'm wrong, is that if we're self-insured, we're going to pay that ourselves before we utilize the insurance money. Now, if I'm incorrect on that, then that sounds to me like they're going to use that out of some fund they have, general fund or wherever that fund is set up. Now, it sounded to me like they set this fund up based upon the exposure itself, either low level or high level. And obviously, the police would probably be the highest level, maybe the fire department second, because of the speed they're driving when they have to go to a certain location, so that would be expected. I would like to see a report done or maybe an audit on this situation, on understanding on how they develop that exposure level, on how much they have to pay, how many miles they have to go, and exactly how much has been paid out in each bureau. I think we're at that point where we're starting to see these type of numbers showing up in front of us to have a clear understanding. Insurance taking care of this? Is this coming out of some general fund that we could be putting more money into services? And do we need to have, upon any accident, an immediate drug test taken? And to make sure if there are any issues that we get them corrected very fast? And should there be driver training courses put into place whenever we have any type of situation where we're having this type of number presented and paid out? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Again, for the record, Charles Bridge Crane Johnson, and I want to thank Commissioner Daly and Commissioner Hardesty for bringing this up. And, you know, here, of course, we have the sad issue of Mr. Gorman's injury. And unfortunately, because of the way bureaucracy or government works and doesn't work, it doesn't come paired with a discussion of what other money has been expended to make the intersection safer, to make sure this doesn't happen again. And that, of course, doesn't need to be dovetailed here, but that's the way tort works, is the city gets stung for $145,000, and hopefully the city responds in a way that mitigates and reduces risk at that intersection. And I wish we had a better system of government that partnered these two things, the $145,000 sting with the things that Peabody, this accident happened before Commissioner Daly was even elected, but I know she's very concerned about Vision Zero and has probably done the things to know what's happened at that intersection to increase safety. You know, when we settle things semi-behind closed doors and the check goes to Forum Law Group, you know, congratulations to Forum Law Group for finding this person who probably had very expensive injuries and getting this money. But I just want to make sure that we're not only talking about conserving financial risk, but making sure that risk of injury is eliminated to the citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Udaly?
I just want to quickly say that I'm of course concerned about any injury that happens on our road. This is a complicated intersection, but I'm pleased to report there's been no other accidents that we know of at that intersection. Since the crash, PBOT has adjusted the placement of a sign that instructs bicyclists on the multi-use path to use the pedestrian crossing, and a far side bicycle signal will be installed along with a few other changes, including changes to striping. This accident, I think, just highlights the need for everyone on the road to obey traffic laws, whether you're a driver, a cyclist, or a pedestrian. And I vote aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. 834, please, was also pulled.
834, pay bodily injury lawsuit of Don Perkins in the sum of $60,000 involving the Portland Police Bureau.
All right, so I was given a statement to read. On February 9th, 2017, Don Perkins, a 59-year-old man living in his van, called 911 Bowick and reported he was suicidal, had taken pills, and would take more if he could not contact his doctor. Bowick dispatched Portland police to an approximate location based on Perkins' cell phone GPS. An hour later, 2 Portland police officers located the van and found Perkins sitting inside with pills on the floor around him. One officer noticed a black object in Perkins' hand. Both heard a sound associated with firearms, and they disengaged from the van and requested additional officers. Perkins tossed a pill bottle and a small black object onto the ground from the open side door of the van where he sat. Believing the object was a gun, officers told Perkins not to reach for it or he would be shot. Other PPB officers arrived. Perkins bent down and reached toward the black object. An officer fired 1 round from his rifle. Perkins jumped behind a tree, yelling at officers to shoot him. He again reached for the black object, and both officers fired additional rounds, injuring him. Perkins was handcuffed and transported to OHSU via ambulance. The black gun he had reached for was later determined to be a replica. Mr. Perkins' injuries were substantial, requiring multiple surgeries and a lengthy recovery process. His medical bills exceeded $300,000. Mr. Perkins' attorney filed a federal lawsuit in 2018 against the city and the 2 officers who shot him, alleging excess force and seeking $1.3 million. Mr. Perkins got a new attorney in April 2019 who relayed a desire to settle the case. The parties, including Mr. Perkins, attended a judicial settlement conference in June, and Mr. Perkins agreed at that time to accept a $60,000 settlement and dismiss the lawsuit.
Very well.
Is
That
that
was
all
my
accurate?
introduction, so
Very good.
I will say no further, other
Good.
than Rob Yamachika is here from the City Attorney's Office. He provided the city's defense of this case, and we've been working together on this case from the get-go. So if you have any questions about the legal aspect of it, Rob is here to discuss that with you.
Who pulled this item?
Dan Handelman.
Okay, very good. So I'll save you that for right now. We'll hear from Mr. Handelman, and perhaps there'll be a question or two, but we appreciate your work on this.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And was there anybody else signed up for public testimony?
We didn't have a sign-up sheet for
Very
this
good.
one. So if anybody else wants to testify, come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I am Dan Handelman with Portland Cop Watch. And until recently, whenever there was an item about a lawsuit settlement about police use of force, it was always put on the regular agenda. So when I found this on the consent agenda, I pulled it. I also pulled several months ago an item where there was a shooting in the Laurelhurst neighborhood for discussion, because if we don't have these discussions at City Council, we don't have these discussions anywhere. I testified last week about the changes to the Police Review Board, noting that those meetings happen behind closed doors. Even when the Citizen Review Committee members sit on those hearings, the discussion about the substance of what happened can't be repeated because it's confidential. So there is no public discussion of these very high-profile incidents that are of deep concern to the community unless we have them here at City Council. So I'm hoping that in the future, these will be put on the regular agenda, not put on the consent agenda anymore. We have no objection to the settlement itself. We just, it's worth pointing out that this shooting happened the same day that Quantas Hayes was shot and killed, with a shot to the head and a shot to the chest by a Portland police officer. Mr. Hayes was African-American, whereas Mr. Perkins is white, and he lived. The OIR report, when they were talking about this incident, said that Mr. Perkins did not have anything in his hands when the officers approached him. Neither Quantas Hayes nor Mr. Perkins pointed a weapon at the officer before they were shot. So that's of concern too. One of the officers who was involved in this was also involved in another incident where a person in mental health crisis was shot and no plan had been developed. It sort of seems like this was another incident where this person was, admittedly suicidal, and it didn't seem that the officers had a full plan about what they were going to do. The police review board report that came out, the printed report, said that the members of the board commended the officers for their actions rather than questioning whether Mr. Perkins actually reached for that gun. So there's just a lot of questions about these cases that really need public discussion, is really what my issue is.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Charles Bridge Crane Johnson. And again, the mess of how tort and liability for the city intersects with the problems we're paying for and not paying for, or with the problems we only delay payment for. It's an unfortunate phrase, but I don't know one that's more politically correct. So, suicide by cop. According to the narrative the mayor read, that was almost the explicit request of this person in mental health distress. And when, during communications, Jason Renaud from Mental Health Association of Portland presented, we were talking about the same issue. One way or another, society is going to pay, whether it's hospital bills, funeral expenses, tort liability. So we need to really, we're fortunate. That's an unfortunate, here's a person who's probably very low wealth, low income, and in a situation where he has come to believe with his attorney that $60,000 is a correct amount to hopefully reset his life and deal with whatever ongoing trauma and injuries he has. But I know you're all working hard to really deliver to us the systems of care that make this never happen. Some of that is going to be a slow process that's not in place, based on what was said earlier during communications. But, there's not an official, because it's weird, because the city, of course, is in one extent expected to limit its engagement and involvement. Yet we know one of our neighbors was suffering extremely, and is probably going to have some forms of prolonged suffering, and we don't know whether the $60,000 goes in the bank and he becomes emotionally distressed again in a year, or if he's permanently connected to care and support. So let's cross our fingers and vote yes.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Hardesty, did you have a comment?
Just so you know, there's something wrong with this clock.
The digits have
The
gone
digits,
crazy.
yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Very
Okay,
ghostly.
thanks. Carla, maybe we could get that looked at after the
What?
meeting.
Your
The-
LEDs are going whack.
The clock's not working. It may be, the LEDs are out.
Thank you. Art.
We'll have to allocate that, fall bump, new clock. Very good, thank you. Please call the roll.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. We'll move to the regular agenda, 840, a second reading.
Extend intergovernmental agreement with Home Forward through September 30, 2022, to continue to provide patrol services at the New Columbia housing sites.
Colleagues, this is the second reading. We've heard a presentation and public testimony. Any further business? Commissioner Hardesty? Nope. Call the roll, please.
Hardesty,
I just want to put on the record that I appreciated the testimony that we heard last week about this assignment at New Columbia. I look forward to having a new contract next year so that we don't continue the trend of just renewing it. I look forward to a full conversation around that. I vote aye.
Udaly,
I echo Commissioner Hardesty. I'm also looking forward to revisiting this issue and also hearing from community members who live in the village. Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item, 841. This is a report.
Appoint Jeff DeCosta and Tracy Westerfield to the Investment Advisory Committee for terms to expire September 1, 2021.
Colleagues, the Investment Advisory Committee advises the city treasurer in connection with portfolio oversight, investment policies, and investment practices. The committee reviews the investment portfolio and provides insight regarding economic conditions and strategies regarding the management of the portfolio. The committee is made up of at least 3 public members who are experienced investment professionals. The city's debt manager serves as an ex officio member of the committee. The committee is presently made up of 3 women and 3 men. The Treasury Division will continue to work with the Office of Civic Life to develop a roster of qualified candidates to serve on this important committee. Today's nominations include 2 individuals who bring a unique perspective and experience in managing public sector investment portfolios. Jeff DeCosta is the investment officer for Multnomah County, where he's responsible for managing the county's cash and investments. Tracy Westerfield is the cash and investment program manager for the Port of Portland. We appreciate their willingness to offer their experience and knowledge to the city of Portland. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Bridget O'Callahan. For the record, I am your city treasurer. I'm here today to recommend the appointment of 2 new members to the City of Portland's Investment Advisory Committee. This legislation provides an opportunity for experienced representatives from the community to participate in a dialogue regarding the investment portfolio oversight, investment policies, and investment practices. As the mayor said, this committee is made up of at least 3 public members who are experienced investment professionals and the city's debt manager, in addition to the treasurer. The committee also reviews the investment portfolio, provides insight regarding economic conditions, strategies regarding the management of the portfolio, but they also have some responsibilities from a fiduciary perspective in terms of understanding the laws and standards that impact the investment processes in the city's portfolio, understanding, interpreting, and discussing the city's investment portfolio in terms of compliance with Oregon revised statutes. They are to review the investment policy annually, and they annually review our qualified financial depositories list and approved broker-dealer counterparty list. And of course, other matters which may be requested by City Council or by the Office of Management and Finance. Treasury has worked with the Office of Civic Life to develop a roster of qualified candidates for this important committee. This does require a fair amount of background and experience for someone to be nominated, and I'm delighted that we have 2 highly qualified individuals to put forth today. Today's nominations, again, are of 2 individuals that bring unique perspectives to the public sector investment portfolios. With us today is Jeff DeCosta. Jeff is from Multnomah County. As we mentioned, he is responsible for managing the county's investment and cash practices. In addition to Jeff, who's not able to be with us today, is Tracy Westerfield. Tracy is unfortunately on vacation, but she
That's
passed
not
on.
unfortunate for her.
No, not for her, but for us, as she really did want to be here today to have a chance to meet all of you.
Right.
Tracy is the cash management and investment program manager for the Port of Portland. I'm going to give you just a couple of quick highlights about Mr. DeCosta, who is here with us today. And
No, we
certainly
have his bio in our
Okay.
materials. Mayor, given the time and we have a full agenda ahead, could we just go and have the applicant make a couple of comments?
Sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm very excited, especially, being here in the city, Multnomah County, right across the river. We're doing some of the same stuff as you guys from an investment perspective. It's very limited, obviously, the state of Oregon and the rules and stuff like that. So it'd be just good to collaborate with each other, what they're seeing in the market. We're in an environment right now where rates are going down, and I'm sure the Fed will ease them again. What's our strategy? How far are you going to lock in and stuff like that? So it's just a good opportunity, and also to collaborate with the Port of Portland, having them on the board as well.
Well, I love the fact that you have someone at the table when someone says, what's a best practice in local government?
Yeah.
There you are. So thank you for your
Thank you.
willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Very good, Commissioner Hurst. Did you have a question? Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it. These are two outstanding candidates. You're both going to contribute a lot. I appreciate that collaboration as well. It's a very uncertain environment, so making sure that we have all our best minds together, I think, is a very sound strategy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I move the report.
Second?
We have a motion from Commissioner Fish, a second from Commissioner Udaley. Any further business? Please call the roll.
Hardesty? Aye. Udaley?
Thank you for your willingness to serve. I vote aye.
Thank you.
Fritz?
Thank you for both your public service, working for the county, and now volunteering with us. Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Two great committee members. I'm very excited. I vote aye. The report's approved, and the appointments are adopted. Thank you. Next item, 842.
Accept bid of Moore Excavation, Inc. for the Southeast 80th Avenue and Mill Street LID for $1,954,148.
Good morning, Lester. How are you today?
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler, City Council. I'm Lester Spitler, the city's Chief Procurement Officer. I have before you a CPO, Chief Procurement Officer report for the Southeast 80th Ave and Mill Street Local Improvement District project. The authorizing ordinance number 188786 was approved on January 24th, 2018. The engineer's estimate at the time was $1,777,605. We issued an invitation to bid on June 26, 2019. We had a non-mandatory pre-bid conference for which 4 contractors showed up. We had 3 prime contractors and 1 subcontractor. Invitations to bid were due on July 30th. 3 bids were received. The apparent low bidder is Moore Excavation, and their bid amount is $1,954,148, which is approximately 10% over the estimate. The city's 20% aspirational subcontractor and supplier utilization goals applied to this project. Moore Excavation is not meeting the 20% aspirational goal. They are self-performing 71.24%. They've identified subcontractors that can perform 12.83%, and they're subcontracting about 16% of the work to non-certified subcontractors. There's a table in the report that shows the certified subcontractors and what scope of work that they'll be performing with the amount. I will say that Moore Excavation made an attempt to reach out to a lot of subcontractors. They showed us the various scopes of work that they conducted a solicitation to receive certified firms. They didn't get many responses, which I think is prominently why they are not meeting the 20% goal.
How proactive are they being? I mean, we give a lot of business to this company, and they seem to be now fairly consistently not meeting their co-bid goals. What are they doing to be proactive about this?
Well, this is the system that they use is much like the system we use to advertise opportunities. They have a database of firms that are in this database that have signed up to perform different scopes of work for them. And when they have a bid, they blast out an outreach, if you will.
Do they call people? Do they meet with people? Do they sit down and have coffee and say, look, we'd like to partner with you?
No.
Why not?
Well, I think for one thing, they've gotten away with not doing that for a period of time.
So I'm raising a red flag today because this is about the 3rd or the 4th time in a row that they've come forward significantly below the co-bid aspirational goals. And I know that there are other contractors who are making the goal.
Yes.
Mayor, may I?
Commissioner Fish.
Prior to your taking over as Chief Procurement Officer, and I'm thinking maybe 2 years ago, time flies, a similar red flag was raised, and Moore was invited to come to a meeting that was attended by a number of by a couple of elected officials. Mayor, this is one I think you may wish to host, as well as to some senior staff people, and these very questions were asked. I think in light of the performance record since then, I know they did make some concerted efforts then, explain some of the limitations. They're likely to tell us that there's just a lot of work in the market right now, and so it's harder to reach people. But the mayor's absolutely right. How much of this is proactive versus how much of this is just formula? And I think the only way for us to get that answer is to invite them in, because they are the beneficiaries of lots of work. They do very good work, but they get a lot of contracts. And Mayor, I suggest that we know who the infrastructure bureaus are who have a dog in this fight. And I would urge that the procurement officer and you host such a meeting, we get some people in the room, and we actually talk to their leadership about what efforts they're making. And I think unless there's a change, this may go from red flag to directions that we can't accept these numbers.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. My assumption is we're going to see more from this company, and I really just need to have a better understanding of what's going on here. And so if Lester, you could work with us to
Yes.
arrange that, I'd appreciate that. We should have some representatives from some of the bureaus that actually use more excavating. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. I am thrilled to hear both you and Commissioner Fish really highlight this issue, because I've been a thorn in Lester's side since I got here, because we keep talking about what's our aspirational goals, and then we continue to have the same contractors never achieve those goals, and there seems to be no accountability for not achieving those goals. My only addition to what was already said was you don't have to be an infrastructure bureau to care about equity and contracting and making sure that everybody benefits from public dollars. So I hope you will keep my office informed as we're starting to set this up. I have a long history of following contracting at the City of Portland, and we do not have a good history, and I would like to help make it better, so thank you.
Good, and I would appreciate your partnership on this. I think that'd be useful.
Mayor.
Commissioner Udaley.
Well, as the commissioner in charge of the bureau that hired them, I would just want to echo the concerns expressed by the mayor and Commissioner Hardesty. I do recall multiple items coming before council from Moore where they're not meeting our goals. And I know that within PBOT on some of our projects, we're vastly exceeding those goals.
Yeah.
Double
right.
or
That's
more.
right.
And so I know that there's a lot of demand in the market, but it really sounds like they need to up their outreach game.
Yeah,
Because Commissioner Day, don't you have a outreach team in Peabody, which is why you've been doing such a getting great outcomes.
Perhaps we could help them.
You could maybe do a training. We could frame it in that. And I also wonder whether the company, I think one time a representative came in and I asked about diversification within their company and didn't get a very satisfactory answer. So I wonder if the training could include how to make your company a company that people of color want to work in and do business with.
Yeah, I appreciate the direction of council and will absolutely facilitate a meeting and conversation. I agree that it's necessary. The last time Moore came up with a CPO report, I looked at their active contracts and they had 5 and they were only meeting the goals on 1. So,
Lester, are you recommending today that notwithstanding the dismal numbers, that we accept the report, but then do the follow-up work with them?
yes, that's what I recommend.
I move the report.
Second?
We have a motion from Commissioner Fish, a second from Commissioner Udaley. Please call the roll.
Hardesty,
Well, I think I'm going to be a no vote on this one. I suspect it will pass, but I think it's good to draw a line in the sand and say if you have this much access to public dollars, then you have an obligation to make sure that the public benefits from those dollars. So I happily vote no.
Udaley,
If Moore hasn't heard our message already, because like I said, this has happened repeatedly, I hope they hear it today. I think they've heard from perhaps the entire council that this isn't acceptable. What I'm unclear about is if we are obligated to accept the lowest bid, what recourse do we have for them not reaching these aspirational goals? So I am going to very reluctantly vote yes, just because I know what not passing this will mean to the LID, but I won't I won't be accepting another one, and if you could follow up with me later on that question, I'd appreciate it. I vote aye.
Fritz.
Commissioner Daly, that was a very thoughtful explanation, and I was pondering to myself, if you vote no, what do I do? We obviously need to change the policy, and we have to do that before we could actually say no. But I think it is important to send a very strong message, so I'm going to join Commissioner Hardesty in voting no.
Fish.
I'm going to follow the lead of the commissioner in charge and vote aye.
Wheeler.
So I think the message has been sent loudly and clearly. This will go through. I will vote aye, but it is the last time I will vote for this contractor if they come in this far below our expectations. And so I will take personal responsibility for making sure that all the appropriate bureaus are present. Lester, you will work with me. We will not entertain any further contracts from this company until we have the meeting that all of us have just described. I vote aye. The report is adopted. Next item, 843.
Accept bid of Landis and Landis Construction LLC for the Hillsdale South Sewer Rehabilitation Project for $1,844,515.
Commissioner Fish.
Chief Procurement Officer.
Go ahead.
Thank you, City Council. Again, I'm Lester Spittler, the city's Chief Procurement Officer. You have before you the CPO report for the Hillsdale South Sewer Rehabilitation Project. There was an authorizing ordinance, 189465, that was approved on April 17th, 2019. The engineer's estimate for this project was $2.65 million. We issued the solicitation on June 20th, 2019. We conducted some different forms of outreach with this one. We sent some personal letters, we made phone calls, we made emails, we published a flyer that talked about the different needs of the project and made sure the different community partners and contractor advocacy groups had a copy and distributed out to their members. We held a mandatory pre-bid conference on July 10th, 2019. There were 8 firms present. Bids were due on July 25th, and we received 3. The low bidder at this point is Landis and Landis. Their bid of $1,844,515 is about 10.68% under the engineer's estimate. Our 20% aspirational goal for subcontractor and supplier utilization applied to this project, and I'm happy to present that Landis and Landis is achieving that goal. They've identified 24.77% of the project to COVID certified firms. They are self-performing 48.93%, and they've identified 26.3% to non-certified firms. There's a table in your report for the certified subcontractors that they've identified with the scope of work and the amount. With that, Landis and Landis is in compliance with all of the City of Portland's contractual requirements, and I ask that you accept this report and authorize execution of the contract.
I move the report.
I have a motion from Commissioner Fish, a second from Commissioner Hardesty. Any further business? Please call the roll.
Hardesty.
I appreciate the work that you're doing, Lester, to clearly identify who's benefiting and who isn't benefiting from these public contracts. I'm going to support this one today, but I think your outline clearly shows that, once again, white men are the super majority beneficiaries of this particular contract. And so, nothing against white men, but I think that as we talk about making sure that minority businesses have these opportunities, as I look at this list, I think, 67,000 go to people of color, and the rest of a $1.8 million contract actually is divvied up business as usual. So I know you've just inherited a lot. I think this might be promising, but I am concerned that we've got lots of projects coming down the pike, and I think we can do better. Going back to our last conversation, I vote aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Fritz.
Thank you for sharing our concerns and for all the work that you're doing. Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. Report's accepted. Next item, please, 844.
Accept the guaranteed maximum price of $998,998 from McKinstry Ascension LLC for Portland Parks and Recreation Energy Savings Performance Savings Build Design Contract.
Commissioner Fish.
Mayor and colleagues, thank you. Mayor and colleagues, as part of Parks' 2017-2020 strategic plan, which was adopted by council, the Bureau is undertaking an energy-saving strategy. This item is the procurement contract to begin the first phase of the work. Phase 1 includes energy-efficient upgrades at 9 locations, including 5 parks east of I-205. You've been handed a map that's color-coded and shows the 5 parks east of I-205. The improvements include bird-safe LED lighting at 7 parks and the Montevilla Community Center, water-saving upgrades for irrigation and splash pads, and new mechanical fixtures at Montevilla Community Center. In addition to achieving the city's and the Bureau's shared environmental goals, Phase 1 will conservatively save parks $45,000 a year in utility costs and reduce the maintenance liability by over $100,000 annually. This is a win for our environment and for the Parks Bureau's bottom line. Now I will turn it over to Lester and Chris, Chris Silke, who is with Parks Asset and Development, for a brief presentation and to answer any questions.
Hi, good morning, Council. My name is Christopher Silke. I'm the Asset Management Program Manager for Parks and Recreation. I'm the project manager for this energy savings performance contract. The map you have in front of you shows where we shortlisted in green for this Phase 1, and then the yellow depicts everything that was studied as part of this process that started back in 2017. So that's an overview of the project, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
That's good.
Good afternoon, City Council. I'm Lester Spitler, the Chief Procurement Officer. This is a unique type of procurement. This is the first one that the city has done. There was an authorizing ordinance 188310 that was approved on April 5th, 2017. The engineer's estimate at the time was $2 million for the work that was intended to be executed. The City of Portland issued a request for proposals on August 21st, 2017. It's important to note that the State Department of Energy pre-qualifies energy service companies to do this work. So when we issued the solicitation, there were 5 pre-qualified companies with the state. So we outreached to all 5 to make sure that they were aware of this opportunity, to make sure that they were prepared to respond. We held a mandatory pre-proposal conference. All firms attended. The proposals were due on September 26, 2017, and 4 proposals were received. McKinstry Ascension LLC was selected as the highest scoring proposer. After that, we entered into a professional services contract on January 1st, 2018 in the amount of $221,987. That contract included a preliminary energy audit, a technical energy audit, and a project development plan that has been completed. At the end of Phase 1, McKinstry has estimated that the remaining design and construction work for those recommended improvements is going to cost $989,989. At this point, since the design of that work has not been fully completed, they haven't been able to identify certified subcontractors or any subcontractors to perform the work. So the design build contract that you would be authorizing today allows them to progress design to complete that, at which point they will identify certified subcontractors. However, they have committed to 55% subcontracting dollars going to certified firms. They've identified the scopes of work in the CPO report where they intend to find those certified subcontractors. So we're going to hold them to that. They will be self-performing 40.8%, and they've identified 45% of the work that would go to non-certified subcontractors. They are in full compliance with the City of Portland's contractual requirements, and with that, we ask that you accept this report and authorize the design build contract.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Lester, what are we buying?
So we're essentially buying a design build contract with McKinstry. So they've done these audits, they've come forward with recommendations. With your authorization, they will continue to design those modifications, and once they're fully designed, they will construct them. So you're authorizing a professional services contract and a construction services contract via one agreement.
And But this was approved in 2017. Is there a reason why it's taken till almost 2019's over for us to?
No, it was not approved. It was put into the strategic plan as an item. It was not approved. This is the first time it's coming forward as an action item. It was incorporated into a strategic plan along with hundreds of other action items in 2017. This is the moment in the queue where we're coming forward to begin phase one.
My last question has to do with the aspiration of 50% minority women in emerging small businesses. What experience has the contractor had in actually achieving that goal?
We actually have someone from McKinstry in the office, if I can invite him up to explain the experience that their company has had.
And
Carla?
And if I could just add to that, the original procurement, we actually increased the weight of the proposer's track record on minority women-owned small business subcontracting. And so we took into account their experience, and the winning firm had a track record that far exceeded all the other proposers in that source selection process.
That's helpful, thank you.
Brad Ouderkirk with McKinstry. We have a lengthy track record of working with public agencies and executing the minimum of 20% with the goal of exceeding well beyond that for this particular project. I believe the most recent data point we have is the Terminal E expansion at the Port of Portland, that construction project where we exceeded the 20% minimum.
So you're making a commitment to us that you're going to exceed 50%, and are you confident you can reach that?
We are, I believe, as was stated, there are some details to be worked out in the final design phases.
Right.
But we have already begun extensive outreach to the list of contractors that are approved on the certified list, and we feel confident that we can achieve that.
Thank you.
Great. I'll entertain
Well,
Commissioner
Mayor,
Hardesty.
before you do that, I just want to say we have a map that every colleague has. We also, Mary Coolidge from Audubon came down today and spent some time with us this morning, and this is a procurement report, so we don't take testimony, but she asked that her testimony be put into the record, and Audubon is fully in support of this project.
Great, that's good to know. That raises a question. Did you have a question? I just had one more item, and I've raised this before, and I just want to make sure that different bureaus are connecting, because I know that in other bureaus, increasing light means increasing visibility and increased safety, and I'm thinking in particular of those who've asked for public safety improvements as well as those who've asked for transportation safety, and I don't know to what degree these particular lights are.
So I can answer that very briefly, Mayor.
Sure, you bet.
These lights are state-of-the-art, energy efficient. One thing that makes them, I think, especially beneficial for the city is that they focus the light down. There's no diffusion up or sideways, which as we know, is not only an inefficient use of light, but it also is bad for birds. And the intensity is quite strong. In fact, we're right up against the limit of intensity that Audubon would otherwise support because of the amount of light. But they are state-of-the-art, focused. They will improve safety, and we have lots of trails that we're concerned, and walkways, we're concerned about public safety. And I should also tell you that PBOT and Parks regularly collaborate on these issues of lighting.
Okay, that certainly assuages my concerns, and I appreciate that, Commissioner. Any further discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to accept the report. Any further discussion? Please call the roll, Carla.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Glad this is continuing to move forward. Thank you for your work. Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Report's accepted. 845, please.
845, authorize a contract with Walker Macy LLC to provide planning, design, and construction administration services for Park Lane Park development for an amount not to exceed $1,189,848.
Commissioner Fish.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I have a few preliminary comments because this is such an auspicious day, and then we'll turn it over to staff for a brief PowerPoint. This park that is coming before us today is literally 25 years in the making. Park Lane Park, if built, will be one of the easternmost parks in Portland, serving nearly 2,500 families in a diverse community that has historically been underserved by parks. Here's the history. Multnomah County donated the original 5 acres in 1994. The city purchased an adjacent 19.5-acre parcel in 2001, and they purchased it from the Oregon Asphalt Paving Company. In 2009, the community, working with Portland Parks and Recreation, completed a master plan for the site, and that was adopted during my first few months in office as commissioner in charge. From that time forward, Commissioner Fritz carried the torch on Park Lane during her tenure, helping to allocate substantial additional systems development charge dollars, or developer fees, in 2016 and 2018 for the development of this park. Today marks the beginning of the next chapter for Park Lane, putting the master plan vision into place. Now, colleagues, as you know, new parks can be built with fees developers pay on new construction, called SDCs. But SDCs cannot be used for the ongoing operations and maintenance needs of new parks. I have asked my team to give us an estimate of what the O&M might be when this park is completed, and this would be starting in the year 2022. That figure is $470,000. Now, I should caution you that our history is these numbers tend to be a little inflated based on some assumptions, and in conversations with the CBO, they are reduced to whatever the number. But I want to be crystal clear with my colleagues. We have been working on this for 25 years. As we continue to move forward with this project, we are in effect making a commitment to fund operation and maintenance when it is complete. One thing I cannot tell you at this point is what our funding model will be for parks. Mayor, we are by a task force that's been impaneled looking at options. We'll have a work session in November to give an update to my council colleagues. But we are going to be transparent with the council about our ongoing funding needs in the short term and the long term. And now it's my pleasure to turn things over to Lester from Procurement and Britta Herwig from Parks for a brief presentation and to answer your questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Fish, Mayor Wheeler, and Council. My name is Britta Herwig. I'm a project manager with Parks and Recreation, and I'm here to give you a brief presentation. And it seems that we're going to have to use the paper copies that you have because we don't have a computer version right here. So forgive me for that. I'm going to give you a tiny little bit of background about Park Lane Park. It's been a park for a very long time. It's located at in the Centennial neighborhood in East Portland, right around Southeast 155th and a cute street called Mill Main. It's a 25-acre park. Currently, 5 acres of the park are developed. 20 acres have been in land holding for a long time. We have a current level of service radius around a half a mile around the park. We're serving over 2,000 neighbors, residences, and the 20-acre proposed development will add around 400 additional households to that list.
I'm sorry, you're serving 2,000 people how? What are you doing with the 2,000 people in the area?
We have a level of service measurement, so we're measuring a half a mile radius around our park, which we consider to be an easily accessible distance from a park or open space or natural area where people can walk within 10 minutes. And
there's no public transit in that area at all, and unless you live right near it, I don't know.
This is based on people who can walk to the park?
From their residences.
People will be driving to this park, and we actually expect that it will be used by a multiple of that. but this is our standard service model.
I'm fine with that. I just want to be clear that today, there's no public transit that provides access to that area where that park's going to be. So as you're thinking about the development of the parks over the next 3-4 years, working with PBOT and ODOT and TriMet or whoever else there needs to be, again, if we keep our head down and just, we're all about the park, we're missing the opportunity to really do the interconnectedness that we need to do. So just wanted to put that on the table. Doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Just want you to know, I know that area well.
Great.
My neighborhood, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the park has been a park since the 1970s, before it became Portland. The city purchased the additional 20 acres in the early 2000s, in 2006. In 2009, council approved a master plan for the park, for the entire 25-acre park.
Your PowerPoint's up.
Oh, excellent.
And
Let's see here, we're almost through it.
we can go through fairly quickly because my opening remarks captured most of this.
I agree. So we're just going to go straight to the master plan. Approved in 2009. This is the largest park in the area with 25 acres, so it's going to be an important neighborhood park, but also there was a recognition that it will serve the broader neighborhood, so it has many amenities. Focus was on making it a signature park for the area, providing access and focusing on safety, and then providing many spaces for gathering and play. Active recreation is on the forefront, so there are sports courts and fields, and then there was a desire by the public that participated in the master plan process to keep views open because it has very good views of Mount Hood. So we're going to be taking this master plan forward through design and construction. Currently, we have a design team, and Lester, I think, will fill in the details on the design team.
Before you do, I just want to say the picture on the bottom right here is a picture of the basketball court that's there, and thanks to a partnership with Nike and with the Trailblazers, we're in the process of resurfacing all of our parks. It doesn't, our basketball courts, it doesn't quite look like this now because the new material didn't take. But I was at an event, Mayor, when we were cutting the ribbon on the new basketball arena, and there was a woman and her family that were there. They lived across the street. They said, "This is wonderful. We got a new basketball court surfacing. It's wonderful. We're going to get a 20-plus acre park. When are we going to get that community center?" And I said, "Man, we're doing this one stage at a time, but the park is our next major initiative."
So yes, we have $16 million in system development charge funding available. We are, upon approval of the design contract, embarking on a design process that will likely take us through 2021, and then we will do a construction project through a CMGC construction method that will most likely start in summer 21 and conclude in the summer or fall of 2022.
Thank you very much. Lester?
All right, City Council, I'll issue the CPO report, and there's a few things that I'm going to tie back to last Tuesday's work session, if that's okay. So the legislative action before you is a CPO report combined with an authorizing ordinance. The PTE bucket of our contracting is inconsistent with the other two buckets. So the other two, goods and services and construction, require a authorizing ordinance before we issue the solicitation, but for PTE procurements, the authorizing ordinance comes at the end. The estimate for this parks, as Britta said, was $800,000 when we issued the solicitation. Prior to issuing the solicitation, we conducted a massive amount of outreach. We put together a flyer with Britta and her team. We went to an OAMI Coffee and Issues meeting. We met with several firms that were certified that do landscape architecture. Tiffany Penson, our supplier diversity officer, socialized the flyer with all of the community groups, contractor advocacy groups before we issued the solicitation so as to maximize our outreach and engagement with those certified firms. And it worked. We issued an RFP on April 1st. We had a mandatory pre-proposal meeting, and there were 14 different firms in attendance. Proposals were due on May 6th, and we received 6 proposals. 4 of those were from certified firms. And Walker Macy was the highest scoring proposer, and since then, they have also become certified as a women-owned business enterprise. So that's 5 of 6 proposals that we received from certified firms. I think that's a direct result of the proactive engagement that we did prior to issuing the solicitation. Walker Macy has identified 38% of the work that they intend to subcontract to certified firms. So now that they're a certified firm, plus what they intend to self-perform and subcontract, the overall utilization is 79% on this project, which, blows our 20% goal out of the water. We're really happy about that. The proposed amount of $1,189,848 is about 50% over the estimate, and Britta is here to answer any questions about that. But otherwise, Macy Walker is in full compliance with all of our contractual requirements. And since this is a dual action, legislative action, authorizing ordinance, and CPO report, I ask that you accept the report and approve the authorizing ordinance.
I have a question.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you both for your presentations. Thank you, Commissioner Fish, for your work on this. Isn't there a Portland Loo at Park Lane now?
There is indeed. It was installed a couple years ago as part of the bond program.
And so I don't see that on the preferred concepts.
Because the concept was done in 2009, so that's the map from back then. And since then, we have gone back, we've improved the playground a little bit, and then we've also installed
Now, Commissioner
the loo.
Fritz is showing off now.
Well, I'm just actually...
She's just showing off. She's looking at this map, and she was going to call us on a 2009 map.
No, I just want to make sure that loo is going to stay.
Absolutely, we're
Good.
working around it.
Thank you.
So Lester, you said something that confused me a little bit. You said I don't see a procurement report unless it's embedded in the ordinance.
Yes, you're right. I apologize.
We don't need a motion on a report. We have an ordinance before
You're right.
us.
This is the
Thank you.
first one, so I just wanted to.
And as
Okay.
I have another clarifying question. The build-out does not include the aquatic center, is that correct?
That is correct.
So for these park improvements, that will be grassed and then to be excavated in the future? Or?
Correct.
Thank you.
Very good. Any public testimony on this item, Carla?
No one signed up.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Udaly?
Well, congratulations, Commissioner Fish and Commissioner Fritz and whoever else was involved with this in the last 25 years. I'm curious what it looked like when it was Candy Cane Park. That sounds enchanting. I vote aye.
Fritz?
Yeah, I hope there'll be a robust naming discussion at the end to see whether they want to keep Park Lane or have something else. When I went to the areas, when I first got the Parks Bureau in 2013, the East Portland Coalition and the East Portland Action Plan both identified Park Lane as their number one desire for improvements. And at that time, just coming out of the recession, we didn't have very much money, but now that we've been doing well for several years, it was one of my lovely parting gifts as I was moving, the Bureau's moving me back to Commissioner Fish. And Commissioner Fish, congratulations. It must be really satisfying to have done the master plan and now to get to implement it. That's really fabulous. Thank you for all your work, Britta and Lester, again, for a good job. Aye.
Fish?
Well, I want to thank my colleagues. For someone watching this without a lot of history and context, they're going to be scratching their head saying, this is a year that the Parks Bureau took cuts and has had to scale back in some services. And here we are moving forward on a new park in East Portland. How on earth did they pay for it? And again, I want to just be very clear, because we take for granted, those of us in government, that we have these different pots of money that are restricted. But I think for a lot of people, that doesn't always make sense. We are using developer fees, which by law can only be used to expand our system. And therein lies one of the challenges, the fundamental challenges that we have at the Bureau, in that we have an equity agenda, which we're deeply committed to as a city, to bring adequate parks resources to a part of the city that was left behind. At the same time, we're trying to right-size a system that we don't have adequate resources to maintain. So to anybody that is scratching their head saying there seems like a contradiction, I would say you're right. But thankfully, we have developer fees that we can use to build out this park and to cover our expenses. Thankfully, we have 3 or 4 years to figure out where the money is going to come from in terms of operations and maintenance. And I think by then, we'll have a new model in place for how we fund parks at a much more robust level, which will answer the question of how we pay for the operations and maintenance. So Greta and team, I want to thank you. I want to thank our professional staff, and Lester, I vote aye. Oh, excuse me, and I doubly want to thank Commissioner Fritz, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, for allocating substantial resources to make this day possible. Aye.
Wheeler?
Well, this looks great, and I also want to add my thanks, Commissioner Fritz, Commissioner Fish. Thank you for your hard work on this and your team's hard work on this, and to both of you for carrying this ball for a long, long time. This will be a terrific addition to the neighborhood. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item, 846, a second reading.
Authorize charitable organizations eligible to participate in the city's 2020 charitable campaign and authorize exemptions for charities not meeting the 25% overhead cost cap requirement.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Hardesty?
I really appreciated the detailed conversation we had last week about this issue. I will be voting no because I don't believe that you can treat small nonprofits the exact same way you treat multi-million-dollar nonprofits. I think that the 25% overhead is different based on the size of the organization that's receiving the funds. So I will be voting no on this measure. You look
Daly.
confused, Commissioner Fritz.
So we are voting to authorize exemptions for charities not meeting the current 25% overhead cost cap. And as we discussed when the item came forward, this has come before us before, and we'd like to address it in the long term because we need to acknowledge, as Commissioner Hardesty has pointed out, that it's kind of a built-in bias against small nonprofits, and also some nonprofits aren't pass-throughs for money. They actually provide services, and their overhead will necessarily be higher. So I do support this, and I'm looking forward to permanently revising the standards so we don't have to have this conversation every year. I vote aye.
Fritz?
Ditto, aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. Next item, 847.
Authorize an agreement with TriMet for a sublease for the co-location of the data radio equipment at Mount Scott in the amount of $55,963.
Commissioner Fritz.
Director Stu, you've been sitting there patiently all morning, so I'm just going to let you go right ahead and tell everybody about this.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Hopefully, this should be really simple. High points in this city are very valuable for those of us in the water business because we use gravity and anybody who has signals and towers and antennas. What we're doing here today is continuing to lease space on a tower that's owned by TriMet on ODOT property. We have been parked on top of this antenna for over 10 years, and every 5 years we come in and renew this contract. What does it actually do for us? We have a thing called a SCADA system, and Commissioner Fritz hates abbreviations, so I will tell you it's supervisory control and data acquisition. It's basically all the electronic gobbledygook signals that we control the water system with and monitor our various doings. We have receiving and broadcasting antennas on this tower. We also have space in a building that's located inside a fence at the base of the tower. The space is security protected. It's environmentally controlled, meaning it's air conditioned, and that's basically what we're up to. It's very important to our operation. We have several of these parked around the area in order to pass signals to and from our various locations. The amount is $55,963 for 5 years. It's in about the same vein as what we charge people who park their antennas on top of our water tanks and so on. So kind of frankly, they're the owner, but they use a cost of service model, and I think the costs are reasonable for this type of activity.
Very good. Any questions for Mike? Is there any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up.
All right, very good. This is a first reading of
you.
a non-emergency
you.
ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you, Mike. Next item, 848, second reading.
Amend Parks and Recreation System Development Charge to clarify the eligibility of projects that expand capacity by increasing access to parks and recreation experiences, and add arts capacity projects to the capital improvement plan to improve community access to arts and culture.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Udaley?
Well, I'd like to thank Commissioner Fish and specifically thank Tracy from his office for her work on this item. Happy to support it. I vote aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Right back at you, Commissioner Daly and your office, and we are very excited to expand the scope of allowable uses for systems development charges to allow us to upgrade the technology and the sound systems and the experience that people enjoy, particularly at our recreation facilities, and we'll be coming back to council in the future to memorialize that on our list. I vote aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. 849, please, second reading.
Authorize a competitive solicitation and contract with the lowest responsible bidder and provide payment for construction of the Southeast Claiborne Street at Southeast 135th Avenue Sanitary Sewer Extension, project number E10873, for an estimated cost of $3,148,000.
Please call the roll.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. 850, second reading.
Extend management agreement with Kemper Sports Management, Inc. for the Heron Lakes Golf Course for an additional 24 months, increase the management fee, and add funds for the management fee and operating expenses for the extension period for a not-to-exceed amount of $7,307,912.
Please call the roll.
Hardesty?
I actually am concerned that we're extending the contract for golf courses at a time when we, as you say, we have a task force that's looking at how do we fund parks in a more sustainable manner. I'd hope that this would be for about a year. It's a 2-year contract. I don't support it, so I will be voting no.
Udaley?
I'm going to support this extension, but I have similar feelings to Commissioner Hardesty. I expect our public golf courses to be self-sustaining. I'm not sure whether or not this one is, to be honest. And if they're not self-sustaining, I'd like to see them put to a greater purpose. I vote aye.
Fritz?
So the golf courses are self-sustaining. They're part of an enterprise fund. This one does make money. And this is following the recommendations of the audit to align the expiration of the 4 golf courses, including Heron Lakes, to 2021, to do a comprehensive request for proposals that will allow for the option of single or multiple operators with appropriate alignment and incentives. Aye.
Fish?
Vincent Johnson is here today. Vincent, raise your hand, just if you could. I have the great honor of working with a tremendously talented team at Portland Parks and Rec. Vincent Johnson is doing a superb job with our golf program. We are in the process of reviewing and implementing a number of the auditor's recommendations. This extension aligns the expiration of now all 4 Eastside course contracts, which will give us more options looking forward. And I welcome the conversation about the place, the future place of golf, not only within Portland Parks and Recreation, but as a self-sufficient part of our operation. Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. 836 off of the consent agenda, please.
Authorize intergovernmental agreement with Prosper Portland and Metro to provide Prosper Portland funding for the Arlene Snitzer Concert Hall Marquee Improvement Project, not to exceed $1.5 million.
Who pulled this?
I did.
Hardesty.
Okay, very good. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just pulled this because we've had this conversation before about why we're prioritizing the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall for this repair. And just wanted to put on the record once again in the mindset of the fact that we have lots of public buildings that we own that need to be repaired. Taking this one out of the queue and prioritizing it just feels wrong. And so, nothing against the renovation that needs to happen. I'm just concerned that we're doing it out of context with all the other things that we have to repair.
Okay, and that's fair enough. I just want to reconfirm, though, we are entering into the IGA because we're the building owner, but we're not actually expending any city funds on this particular project. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And can you explain what funds are going towards
Yeah,
this?
so I'm Carl Lyle, Office of Management and Finance, Spectator Venues Program Manager for the city. Kind of provide oversight within our program of the Portland 5 Performing Arts Center buildings, which are owned by the city. They are operated by Portland 5 through Metro. I have Julie Bunker here from Portland 5 who can speak to the project. And I also have Amy Nagy from Prosper Portland who can talk about the funding and the sort of process that went through to identify this project. I would like just to point out that on June 19th, this actually came and there was a presentation on the project full of the context around the amendment to the urban renewal plan and it was approved unanimously by council at that time. So that was why it was placed on the consent agenda. We just felt like the policy direction had already been given. But so maybe Amy, if you want to talk a little bit about the funding.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. As Carl said, I'm Amy Nagy. I'm Project Manager with Prosper Portland. The City Budget Office made us aware of some reserve bond funds that we had that needed to be used for a tax-exempt purpose. And so they were in the South Park Blocks Urban Renewal Area, also known as a Tax Increment Financing District. And so when we were looking to identify projects, our Executive Director, Kimberly Branham, met with commissioners about different projects that are eligible. We looked at the capital improvement list as well amongst the bureaus to see if there were any pushing kind of priorities. And so we also did reach out to the county. And so we identified a project with the county, which is the Central Library, which you all heard about again in June. And then when we connected with Commissioner Fritz, she suggested that we look at the Portland 5.
My apologies. There's like quite a few of these things that come in front of us, and I do remember being briefed on this one and thought it was a really good idea to invest those funds, especially when they only could be invested in public buildings. So my apologies.
I think it's worth highlighting, though, because it does look bad to the public when we're spending $1.5 million on something that seems relatively frivolous compared to some of the more urgent issues we're facing. But what they often don't know is that these funds are earmarked for very specific things. And for instance, we absolutely could not take this $1.5 million and spend it on affordable housing or homeless services. So it's just one of the weird things about there's lots of money in different pots and yeah, okay, thank you.
Very good. Thanks for your hard work on this. I'm looking forward to seeing the results. This is a first reading of the non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Last but not least, 839.
Authorize the Bureau of Transportation to execute a renewal and amendment to public recreation facility license with the State of Oregon Division of State Lands for the Kevin J. Duckworth Memorial Dock.
And can I ask who pulled this one?
Lightning did.
Okay, and I do
He is
not
gone.
see him. It's a great project, right?
Absolutely.
I'll just briefly say renewal of the
Thank you.
license will be for a period of 15 years and will allow the dock to remain in its current location and configuration for the duration of that time. Per this license agreement, the Duckworth Dock will continue to be used as a short-term boat moorage for public use. The City of Portland will continue to work with the State of Oregon, local community groups, and members of the public to explore the feasibility of adding swimming, fishing, and other public recreational opportunities in the future.
Love it.
That's
Very good.
it.
Excellent. Please call the roll.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The ordinance is adopted, and we are adjourned.